Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto has Greninja and Naganadel Pokemon. Before I start, please support for more amazing content, and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by BlitzJV and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1, Unbreakable. Unbreakable. Naruto, make sure you are going to be okay. You will be all alone without a guardian to help you through the coming times, and I know your family won't help you. An old man with a white robe had said as he looked at a large boat with many people and Pokemon. Thank you, Gramps. A little boy with blonde hair, purple eyes, and a small backpack had said to the old man. I'll be fine though, I'll grow up to be an even greater trainer than you were in your prime, he said with a big smile that only a 6-year-old could muster up. The old man smiled and then looked toward the boat, seeing it was going to depart soon. Remember Naruto, he then looks to the sky and sees the shining horizon, then he looks back at the port and Wave City. Let nothing hold you back from being great. Your family and Konoha City tried to stop you from achieving your goals, but do not let them shackle you. Reach the top, and when you look at them to see them begging for forgiveness, liberate yourself from your longing emotions, and look towards the family you join next. Family are people and Pokemon who love you and will die for you, not just the blood of those who brought you into this world. Make a new family, and accept your past as something that ultimately strengthens you in the end, for I will always cheer you on until you reach the top. The symbols on your arm do not decide who you are, for they are just signs that you will be someone great. The blonde-haired boy started tearing up as he got on the boat and looked at the old man. When I get stronger, let's have a battle. Me versus you, he said with a choked sob as he tried to smile through the tears as Hiruzen saw the boat moving away from the port. Make sure you become champion, Naruto. I expect nothing less than to see my grandchild become the best in the world. The old man then brought out a gold and black ball as it released, and red energy revealed an old but battle-hardened draconic Pokemon that had 3 heads, blue and red fur and black wings. Hydreigon, take us back to Konoha City. It roared a mighty roar, garnering the attention of the entire port as many people began to whisper and mutter about the Pokemon as the old man got on, and it flew away. The blonde-haired boy crying his eyes out as the boat's foghorn blasted open as it started pulling away from the port. The child whispers one last sentence as he looks at the old man flying away, tears running down his cheeks as many people felt pity for the child. Thank you, Grandpa Hiruzen, for everything. The boat moved towards the open sea, and the captain's voice came on for everyone to hear. Alright people, the next stop from Wave City in the Kaiho region is Slate Port City in the Hoenn region. Prepare for departure. It will be an 8-day journey with smooth sailing and clear skies the whole way. Thanks for riding the SS Warlord. The captain's voice rang out as all people went to their rooms on the ship as Naruto stopped his tears and looked towards the horizon. His violet eyes shined in the sunlight as he couldn't look away from the absolute beauty the horizon had shown as the sun's light connected with the sea and made water look shining orange instead of cool blue. He admired the beauty of it all as he tightened his fists, breathed in the fresh air and stared at the horizon. He knew the past was behind him. His emotions couldn't be manipulated by them anymore. His mind could be cleared now instead of the shadows that overtook them during the major amounts of mental stress and physical strain he endured while at that cursed city. He could look forward now without having to look back over his shoulder the very next second. He felt free. He felt safe. He felt liberated. A teenage boy with blonde hair and violet eyes sat in a tree staring at the sky while underneath all the shade. They looked to be about 5 feet 9 inches with an unzipped orange and black hoodie with a white shirt that had a fox design in orange in the middle. He also had black pants, black sneakers, and a bandaged right arm as he put his hands behind his head and breathed deeply, before slowly exhaling the large breath he took in as he experienced what the calming air and nice weather had felt like. He looked around to see multiple Talos flying around the tree line as he then looked down to see multiple Poochyena and Hoenn Zigzagoon playing around on the ground around the lab. He then sat up and put his back against the tree, and looked to see his hometown as of 9 years ago when he first arrived at the place. Little Root Town was a small town, almost unheard of if it wasn't for the main professor of Hoenn, and he enjoyed every second of him being here. The peaceful air of the town and the friendly people enticed him to stay, and he never regretted making that choice as everyone in Little Root became dear to him, far more special than anybody in Konoha besides the old man. He then shook his head and looked down to see something lying in the branch next to him. It was a frog-like Pokemon with a dark blue and cyan color scheme, yellow pupils and cyan eyelids as it had a noticeable scarf full of bubbles. It was his first Pokemon, his best friend Genji, also known as a Frigadier. Naruto met it when he went through the forests of Hoenn and found it in an unknown pool, miles away from human contact. Froki at the time had been abandoned by its mother and father and left alone in Hoenn. never making it back to its main region of Kalos. Naruto found their stories quite similar, almost exactly the same, so they bonded and it became Naruto's first Pokemon. From then on, Froke helped Naruto reach Little Root Town, and the two became inseparable, almost never apart from the other, as wherever Naruto went, Froke, and when it evolved into Frigadier, would follow as a silent protector of the first human to ever be its friend. Genji, should we go visit Olympus? I am almost positive they are done with their final clearance, so we can begin our journey. Naruto asked his starter in a relaxed voice as he sat up and looked to see his starter with one eye opened as it waved its hand. Froga Frigadier, it said as it waved its hand to tell Naruto to go away as it was resting. He simply chuckled with amusement as he hopped out of the tree and walked towards his home, the one he had been in since the moment he arrived in Little Root. Flashback 9 years ago. Naruto and Froke had gotten out of the forests and ended up within a small town surrounded by forests with a Pokemart and center as they looked around to see people in their houses with the house lights on as it was the evening with the sun going down. They went over to the Pokemon Center as the doors automatically opened to reveal multiple healing machines and people lined up with many types of people staying at tables or renting rooms to stay in for the night. Naruto walked up to the front desk with Froke on his shoulder as he looked up to see a woman with bright pink hairstyle and in a nurse's outfit with a light pink Pokemon with an egg in its pouch pushing around a cart full of Pokeballs that needed to be healed. She saw him standing at the front desk and wondered what someone so young was doing out so late. "Hello, young one, what are you doing here so late?" she said in a kind voice as she looked to see Naruto in a disheveled outfit along with Froke on his shoulder, looking around at the modern technology this place held. "Well, first I would like you to heal this little guy." Naruto petted Froke on its head as it showed its affection, "and I would like to know directions to Little Root Town." "Well, we can always heal your Pokemon for free, but why would you need to go to Little Root Town this late at night? Shouldn't your parents be here to get you?" Naruto's mood suddenly dipped as Nurse Joy knew she had said the wrong thing at that moment, as he had seemed to be saddened by the very mention of his parents. So she simply pointed south as Naruto focused back on her as he looked to where she was pointing. "Little Root Town is simply a straight journey down from here. Right now you are in Old L Town. We will heal your Froke up and then you will be good," she said in a reassuring tone as he nodded and put a smile back on his face. A real one, unlike the fake smiles he continued to use in Konoha as she went with him while watching Froke get healed. He watched while thinking about his journey here. He then felt a tap on his shoulder and saw Nurse Joy smile at him and ask him something. "Young man, why do you need to go to Little Root Town at this moment? Shouldn't you stay here for the night?" she asked concerningly as he looked back at Froke. "I heard it was a place where the main professor lived, and I need to ask him for a special favor," he said seriously as she nodded in acceptance, as it seemed he was just determined. "Have a good day, and remember, the Pokemon Center is always open for you," Nurse Joy said at the desk as Naruto and Froke walked out and continued as it was dusk. They ran towards Little Root, bypassing both wild Pokemon and trainers as they finally saw a sign called, "Welcome to Little Root Town," where trainers begin the start of their new lives. He and Froke both looked around and smiled at each other, then walked toward the largest building as they admired the amazing scenery. The moon was out as they heard multiple Mitayana howling in the distance, as they saw multiple houses close their lights and the people in them went to sleep. Naruto took a tense breath and let it go, emptying his conflicting emotions as he walked into the lab, seeing an assistant looking at a PC box and researching something. "Hello?" Naruto said as the assistant jumped out of his seat and both Naruto and Froke started snickering. "Arceus, young man, you scared the living hell out of me." The assistant fixed his lab coat as he walked up to Naruto, taking in his character. "It seems he is not from around here, as his look doesn't seem to be from Hoenn. He also looks very young, suggesting that he just moved to this location. He also has a Froke, a Kalos starter, which may suggest he's from Kalos." "Excuse me, young man, but why are you here? We normally don't get many people coming to the lab at night," the assistant said as he looked at Naruto as he smiled a shining grin. "We are here to see Professor Birch. He is the only person who can help us." "Fro!" both exclaimed while putting their hands, or in Froke's case webbed hand outwards in a fist. "Uh-huh, and why is the professor the only one who can help you?" he asked with a confused look as he stared at the two. "That's classified information." The assistant face vaulted as Naruto giggled and then got up. "Well, if you are looking for the professor, he should be outside in the back doing field research. Make sure you also tell him to come inside, since the Mitayana come out at this time, and he doesn't have any of his Pokemon on him." Naruto and Froke both nodded with a smile on their faces as Naruto ran through the back door as the assistant's sweat dropped and continued with his work. Naruto awed at the moon above the tree line as he saw multiple Pokemon sleeping in the trees and watching over him as he gave them all smiles as Froka looked around for the professor. They then heard an ear-piercing scream as they heard a deep voice yell, "Somebody, please help me." He rushed in the voice's direction as Pokemon were easily startled by the sudden scream, and Naruto looked to see a man in his mid-20s being cornered by a Mitayana. "Froka, use a move and distract the Mitayana," Naruto said as he ran towards the professor as Froka immediately pounced and created a pulsing sphere of water in its webbed hands and shot it at the Mitayana, who was surprised by the blast of water and sent into a tree. It then created multiple copies of itself, and each copy picked up a rock and shot it at the Mitayana, who was again caught off guard and knocked out by Froka. Naruto simply stared at Froka, being amazed at what it could do and how it easily defeated a Pokemon much bigger than itself. He smiled and pet the Froka, and it immediately cooed in affection. "Nice job, Froka, you're very powerful." Froka," it said affectionately as the man saw the knocked out Mitayana and walked toward the pair. He thought to himself as he saw the pair interact, "I don't think this young boy actually caught the Pokemon," but it listened to him without a moment's rest and immediately became jelly with the boy's touch. He then finally talked as both Naruto and the Froka looked at him. "Thank you, young man, for saving as no one else was around. But why are you here right now?" he asked concerningly as this boy was supposed to be with the family right about now. "Oh, that's simple." He then picked Froka up and put it on his shoulders as they both looked at him with fire in their eyes. "May I have a Pokeball, so I can catch my new friend?" he said with a glint in his eyes as he hopefully looked at the professor, who just simply stared at him. "What's your name, kid?" he asked with a chuckle as the kid's energy confused him but also made him chuckle. "My name is Naruto, and I will be the greatest Pokemon champion of all time, and I always keep my word," he said in a high-pitched voice as he and Froka both looked at the professor with fire in their eyes and souls as their passion had already burned so hard, the professor noticed it. "Well, Naruto, my name is Owen Birch, and I am the Pokemon Professor of Hoenn. Nice to meet you," he said as they both shook hands. Flashback end. Naruto walked back to the lab, taking in every step of the way as he thought about his future. Today was the first day of his journey, considering the age of trainers had been moved from 10 to 15 due to the increasing amount of worry from multiple parents about their children being severely injured or put under the threat of death so early in their lives. He didn't mind though, as it gave him a chance to appreciate his childhood before the first day of his new life confronted him. He had a new family, Professor Birch, his wife Sophie, and their son Brendan. He joined them and experienced why some families just fit your dynamic so well. He and Brendan were always competing, always trying to one-up the other, and Birch supported that as he wanted them to be strong for the future. Sophie simply took care of the family, a mother hen to everyone around. "Naruto, it seems you are ready to get Olympus and get the whole spiel about your journey." He looked to see his father figure standing at the door, his sandals and iconic bag on his shoulder as Naruto just smiled at him. "Well, I think it is about time that the Kombi leaves the hive to become much stronger. Plus, you have been pressuring me to go for about a couple of months now," he said with a calm tone as Birch then looked to see Frogadier in the tree laying in the shade. "Did you ever figure out what your side goal is? I know you want to be a Pokemon trainer, but are there any things on the side that you would like to do?" Birch asked with a sly smirk on his face. "I'm not going to take over the lab, Birch. You will not coax me into doing that, at least not yet," Naruto remarked with a laugh as Birch had shadows over his face. "My son doesn't want to take over the family business, and he even refuses to call me father. I'm so hurt," he said while dropping to the ground and fake crying. "I swear, people would think you are a Pokemon if you continue to use those fake tears to guilt-trip me. But I decided I want to be a researcher of mythical and legendary Pokemon as well as the Ultra Beasts and multiple phenomenon that occur within our world. There are so many opportunities and new Pokemon to explore, it's something that has been on my mind for quite some time," Naruto said with a smile as he looked up towards the sun. "See, and this is why I want you to inherit the professor title from me. At least you focus on other things and actually become an assistant to me in the lab. I swear Brendan has such a one-track mind when it comes to battling," Birch said as he facepalmed, and Naruto chuckled thinking about his brother. He had gotten his Pokemon 2 weeks ago and had started on his journey immediately after. He was already making tons of progress with his bonds and gym battles. "Brendan will be an amazing trainer, we both know he will. There are 9 months until the next Evergrande City tourney, and I want to learn to love and experience my journey. He just wants to go straight through and ignore the beauty around him, but he charges ahead with no fear in his mind." Naruto snorted while thinking about his brother's charge first, asking questions later attitude. "I know, and you both make me proud to have raised you, even if you weren't born with us. Now let's go get Olympus, and you will begin the journey of a lifetime. Naruto and Birch both walked into the lab, seeing his main assistant looking at and scanning a blue and purple Pokeball with white lines and golden arcs around the front. The skin was shown to be at 100% completion as it finally ended, and the green scanner stopped shining as the assistant turned around and saw the two at the scanner. "Hello, Professor. Hello, Naru. Your Pokemon is finished with the final scan. You can pick it up now," he said with a smile as Naruto and him shook hands. "Thanks for everything, Murphy. I'll be sure to include you in my autobiography," he said with a laugh as Murphy then chuckled and said, "Well, thank you for helping me with the enormous workload of the lab. It gets tough cleaning up after this old man," he said while Birch murderously glared at the two before grunting and cursing to himself. "Fucking kids," he mumbled to himself as Naruto and Murphy laughed at his disdain. "Well, let's check on you now. Come on out, Olympus." Blue and red energy shot out of the ball as Naruto pressed the button and revealed a purple Pokemon with a large head with 3 spikes on it and small limbs as it floated in midair. It had large oval eyes and a mouth all colored cyan. It opened its eyes for the first time in hours as it saw Naruto and immediately floated around him excitedly. "Poi poi po," it said with happiness in its voice as Naruto grabbed it and held it in the air, making sure not to touch its poisonous spikes. "Hey Olympus, glad you are finally done with that scan. Are you ready to become the best in the world?" Naruto exclaimed as the Poipole started cheering and floating around again. "Poi," it said as it did multiple flips in the air, and both Birch and Murphy looked at the two and smiled. They remembered when Naruto had gotten that Poipole, as they went with him to study it. Flashback 4 years ago. Professor Birch, Murphy and Naruto with his brand new Frogadier that evolved 2 days before the flight had gone to Alola for Birch to get new information about the Ultra Beast after he had received a report from his colleagues Professor Kukui and Professor Burnett about the Ultra Beast outbreak and how it was handled by the Reformed Ether Foundation and their combined efforts. Birch was the first of the main researchers besides Oak himself to learn about them, and he brought Naruto along as Brendan had visited Johto to visit Professor Elm with Sophie. "So Naruto, when you get there make sure you stay around me as we will be going to a major Pokemon Foundation within Alola and I want you to learn everything about these types of Pokemon, as this is uncharted territory for the rest of the world besides Alola." Naruto simply nodded as he was simply speechless. He looked outside the window to see multiple islands and Pokemon in the sky and ocean below as they prepared for landing. He hadn't felt this sensation since leaving his home region for Hoenn, and Alola looked absolutely beautiful from his perspective so far. He gripped the Ultra Ball that held his first partner, and prepared for any and everything to happen. The pilot's voice came on the speaker as it rang out to the people on the plane, now entering Akala International Airport. The plane eventually landed, and Birch looked through the airport and saw his old friend from Kanto. "Kukui, it's nice to see you again after so long, my friend," Birch said as a man with tan skin, an open lab coat with a six-pack, goggles and a white hat walked up to them. "Alola, my good friend Birch. It's nice to see you again after so long," the man had said as he looked at his old friend and shook his hand. He then looked to see Naruto standing right next to Birch. "And who's this little guy? You already had a second son with Sophie?" he said smugly as Birch just rolled his eyes and remarked, "Yet you just now put a ring around Burnett's finger," he said with a smug smile as Kukui sputtered before gaining a small blush while looking at the ring on his hand. "Anyway, this is Naruto. I adopted him when he was 6 and he became a fantastic son to have and one of the best assistants a professor can have. I honestly couldn't have asked for better sunshines in my life, and he and Brendan are my pride and joy," he said while ruffling Naruto's hair and Murphy muttering, "You only have 2 assistants." "Well Naruto, how do you like Alola so far? Are you finding it nice?" Kukui said with a smile as Naruto smiled back and he fist-pumped saying, "I love it so far. The natural beauty of the islands that I've seen and the variety of Pokemon honestly make me love this place more and more. I'm glad you seem to like it here. Maybe you will start your journey here when the trainer age comes around for you?" he said with a smirk at Birch as he responded with, "Naruto will have his first journey around a region in Hoenn and only Hoenn. Maybe the second region he travels will be Alola though." They then both looked at Naruto who simply smiled and looked out the window to see all the flying Pokemon. "Well then, let's take you to your place of residence right now and then we will discuss our research and maybe catch up on old times," Kukui said as he started walking towards their vehicle. Birch simply snorted in amusement as he, Naruto and Murphy all brought their suitcases to the jeep and Kukui drove them around as Naruto admired the scenery of the city that they were in. "So Birch, how do you like Akala Island so far? It is the first time you have ever been here, so I am curious," Kukui said as he kept his eyes on the road. "This is the life, me and Sophie might as well visit here when the boys are on their journey," he said while putting his feet up and putting his hands behind his head. We have a house able for rent next to us, so if you want you could come here in 4 years. Sounds good. Naruto, do you want to start your journey immediately so I can rest here? He said with a yawn as Naruto was too astounded to care. He watched as they went on a dirt road and saw the multiple Pokemon that were native to the Alola region and grew more and more excited to be a trainer when he was older. 30 minutes later, they arrived at a beach house and a white-haired, tan woman walked out with a blonde-haired woman with white clothes. Kukui got out of the car and gave the white-haired woman a short, wet kiss on the lips as Birch said, "Finally, my old friend has become a man." He then shed manly tears as the white-haired woman punched him down as the blonde-haired woman giggled and Kukui bellowed a laugh. "Birch, next time you taunt me or Kukui, you will be receiving the same treatment." She then saw Naruto and smiled at him as he stared at the ocean, "And I see you brought a little one with you." She then tapped him on the shoulder and he turned around as his violet eyes shined in the sun, and his blonde hair glistened even more than the blonde woman's. "Hello young one, my name is Burnett, and I am another professor of Alola. It's nice to meet you," she said with a smile he considered as sincere as the one Nurse Joyce usually gives people. "Hi, my name is Naruto. It is a great pleasure to meet you, Professor Burnett," he said as he shook her hand, and she said with a slight giggle, the amount of manners this young boy has. He's way more mannered than you ever were, Birch." Birch had shadows around his head as Kukui laughed at him, and the blonde woman walked up to both Burnett and Naruto. "Hello there, my name is Luzamin, and I'm the president of the Ether Foundation and creator of Ether Paradise. It's nice to meet you," she said as she towered over Naruto, who stood and smiled at her. "Hello, Ms. Luzamin, it's really nice to meet someone so decorated and passionate when it comes to Pokemon protection," he said with a grin as she giggled and said, He really is mannered, as well as articulate. Professor, you really hit the jackpot with him. Well, he is going to be the one to take the world by storm. He's my little maelstrom," he said with a bellow of laughter as Naruto slightly blushed from the nickname as the adults chuckled from his embarrassment. "I am confused though, you two look nothing alike, and it seems he isn't even from Hoenn," Luzamin remarked innocently as Naruto then looked slightly down as Birch then just ruffled his hair and said, "I adopted Naruto when he was 6. He's actually from the Kaiho region but came here as his parents before me and my wife Sophie weren't the best. He traveled to Littleroot, and he's been a bright spot ever since, always a boundless amount of energy." Birch responded with pride in his voice as Naruto blushed and looked away as Kukui said, "Kaiho, huh? I heard they re-established their elite forever since they started rebuilding their cities since the Groudon attack. Isn't Hiruzen Sarutobi the new professor?" he said while the adults all conversed and Naruto unnoticeably smiled. "Well, Birch, you will be staying at Ether Paradise along with your son and assistant. The boat here will be the ride, and I will show you to your rooms there. Let's go." Luzamin, Kukui, Burnett, Birch, Naruto and Murphy all got on the boat as Naruto held Genji's Ultra Ball in his right hand for when he would meet new Pokemon and get to know them more and more. As the boat continued to jet forward as the adults all had civil conversations, he looked over the water and saw the multiple water types. He saw white fish with teary eyes, red fish with sharp fins, large blue serpents, multiple pod-like creatures, and whale Pokemon. He grew more and more infatuated with Pokemon as he admired the beauty of the ocean and how it comforted him as underneath his bandages on his right arm, a light blue rune appeared but soon dimmed and disappeared as they approached the artificial island. Naruto looked to see multiple enormous white buildings and lush green grass surrounded by the ocean for miles to come. People in white-clad uniforms signaled the boat in as they all had either serious looks or smiles on their faces as Luzamin waved to her foundation members as an auburn-haired woman with pink glasses and a white lab coat and a middle-aged man with green glasses and gloves walked out to greet Luzamin with a young boy in black clothes and a young girl in a white dress with the same light blonde hair. "Luzamin, it's nice to see you back here with us again," the woman said as Luzamin just nodded with a light smile and said, "Wick, I was only gone for 2 days." She then looked at the two children and smiled lovingly at them. "Gladion, Lily, I'm sorry that I was gone for so long," she said as she walked over and hugged the two of them, the boy scrunching his face with a small blush and the girl looking shy. "It's nice to see you too, Mother," Gladion said with a small blush as he was embarrassed by the hug and the other adults just laughed. Lily was too shy to speak up, and she saw Naruto who just smiled at her, so she looked away even more as Gladion looked to see Naruto, Birch and the others. "Who are these guys?" he said, pointing at Naruto and Birch. "My son, that is the great Professor Owen Birch of the Hoenn region and his son, Naruto. Birch is going to be the first of many professors from other regions to visit our great island," she said with a soft but peaceful tone as Gladion looked at Naruto and walked up to him. "He doesn't look so tough," he said with a smirk as Naruto glared and said, "Oh yeah? You don't even want to try to come at me?" "Well, maybe I wouldn't want to come at such a loudmouth," he said as they both glared at each other, and the adults either chuckled or giggled. It seems they are already getting along with each other seamlessly, Burnett said as Luzmin just giggled as Gladion and Naruto continued to glare at each other, as they were sizing the other up. Lily, why don't you go show Naruto around with Gladion while me and the adults have a chat? Luzmin said with a smile as Lily shyly nodded and walked with Gladion and Naruto as they simply huffed and looked away while walking inside the main building. Now Luzmin then grinned as she looked toward the adults. Let's go share our research. So, how is Hoenn different from Alola? I swear it's just all warm weather over here and mostly ocean over there. Gladion said with his hands behind his back as Naruto replied with, and Alola isn't? I swear all I have seen so far was the ocean. Naruto said with a sarcastic tone as Gladion scoffed. I think Hoenn looked really cool from what I have seen so far, Lily said quietly as Naruto and Gladion both turned to her. You can't be serious, Lily. Alola is way better than Hoenn has any right to be. Empty Lanakila, vast Pony Canyon, all the trial areas, and don't forget every other island in Alola. What does Hoenn have, Empty Pyre? Gladion said with a snort as Naruto came to the defense of his region. It's not just Empty Pyre, but also Empty Chimney and the seafloor caverns as well. Adding on to those are Satopolis City, Lily Cove City, Moss Deep City, Fortree City and Sky Pillar, and the list goes on and on. Don't even get me started on the battle frontier, he said with a smirk as Gladion glared as Alola was still creating a final league and wasn't slated to have a battle frontier style area for another 4 years. They also have some of the most famous trainers in history, Pyramid King Brandon and Champion Steven Stone. Then there's the Devon Corporation and alright, I get it. Gladion had interrupted Lily as she flinched back heavily as he suddenly lost all of his anger. Sorry for trash talking your home, he said begrudgingly as he looked at his sister, and she nodded timidly, making sure he knows she is okay. Naruto saw how distressed Lily was and immediately nodded with shame on his face. Same, and sorry for making your sister even more distressed than before. Gladion just nodded with his hand on his face and the normal blank look that he had on as he and Lily showed Naruto around the Ether Foundation and its many floors and rooms. This here is the Psychic-type resort, and it is specially run by that man with green glasses, also known as Faba. Gladion said with a grunt and thought of how Faba would gush over Psychic-type Pokemon. Yeah, Mr. Faba used to be a champion-caliber trainer before becoming a huge member of Aether with Mother. He is quite eccentric, Lily whispered as Naruto thought about the old man he had seen and his duplicitous smile, and the way he seemed to study his group as soon as they walked in, almost like he was ready to defend it from harm. It seems he is really passionate about his job and Pokemon, he said while somewhat grasping Genji's Ultra Ball and staying alert. He definitely is, and that woman you saw down there is the literal opposite of him. Ms. Wick can either be as nice as a Nurse Joy, or as disastrous as a Salamence depending on her mood, Gladion said with a monotone voice that betrayed his thoughts as he was terrified of the woman's mood swings. Lily flinched at the thought of Wick's mood swings, as the woman could turn from a nice lady to a Giratina within a second if she got pissed off. Naruto looked at the two and raised his eyebrows and snorted in amusement, as he already had the fear of Arceus put into him by his birth mother and her rages, so he wasn't afraid as he already had dealt with worse. Hey Gladion, you have a Pokemon or a starter you want to choose? Naruto asked with a tilt of his head as he saw Gladion's face change from the same blank stare to now emphasizing a bit of surprise from the question Naruto asked out of nowhere. He soon went back to his normal blank stare as he responded with, yeah, I have one. I just can't tell you though. Naruto looked at his eyes and saw the passion burning within them, so he knew Gladion was passionate about getting whichever starter he wanted. Well, do you want to see my starter? I obviously can't do a league challenge yet, but we've been together for a long time. Gladion simply nodded as Lily stared at the both of them, noticing how both seemed to get a certain amount of respect for the other in the very short time they had known each other. Well then, come on out Genji. He threw his Ultra Ball up into the air as blue energy released, and then shaped to be his Frogadier. Frogadier, it said with a tick mark as it was enjoying a nap as Naruto sighed and said with a calm tone before he started yelling, sorry Genji, but I have 2 people that wish to meet you, so please be respectful. Genji had looked to see 2 other children around Naruto's age staring at him, one with supposed boredom although you could see the interest in his eyes as the other one wowed with a timid voice. Frogadier, it said as it stood and bowed to Lily like a normal human would and then stared at Gladion with the same amount of intensity he was giving it. I thought you came from Hoenn, how do you have a starter from Kalos? Lily said with an odd voice as Gladion and Genji continued to stare at each other until Gladion looked away and said quietly, I can see you have raised it well. The emotions flooding in its eyes, the posture, and even its eye movements. They all show that this Frogadier is ready to protect you at all costs, as it is constantly on alert. He finished with a nod of respect to which Naruto and Genji both nodded back. Naruto then turned to Lily as Frogadier looked around and said, "Well, I found Genji when he was a Froka in the middle of uncharted Hoenn territory, as I used the unnamed forests of Hoenn to get to Little Root Town from Slateport City. I found him there when I was 6 years old, and we've been inseparable ever since," he said as he rubbed Genji's head, and its heartbeat immediately calmed and it started saying its name in affection. "Wait, are you from Hoenn or did you go there from another region?" Lily asked with an innocent tone as they suddenly saw shadows over his face as his Frogadier suddenly glared at them. They knew exactly what this look was, as they had that same look from when they were asked about their father. "I don't want to speak on it, just know my home region doesn't matter to me anymore, the world is my home now," he said as he looked at the two and shook his head. "I can see that you are sorry, so I apologize for getting mad. I can also see you recognize the look on my face, so I won't ask you about your past until you are truly comfortable with me," he said with wisdom a 10-year-old shouldn't normally have. Gladion and Lily both nodded as they continued to walk around, not noticing a blue portal begin to form around them as a purple spiked head began to pop out as a noise came from the portal and crystal blue eyes looked at Naruto and Genji. Poi. And as you can see, this is our Ultra Beast lab. This is where we can precisely locate where Ultra Wormholes are located and which Ultra Beast comes out, so we can immediately react and take care of them, and deliver them back to their home dimension, Luzman said with a proud look as the rest of the professors looked around at the state-of-the-art tech and the many ether workers and their Pokemon working to their fullest capabilities. "Damn, you really have everything in order, huh? Oak would commend you for this type of Pokemon care," Birch said with a whistle as Luzman giggled and said, "Trust me, when his cousin Samson told me of Oak's thoughts, I felt very proud of myself and my staff for what we had done when it came to Pokemon research and the many Ultra Beasts that live in Ultra Space. It was indeed a fine pleasure to have you guide us, Lady Luzman," Faba said with a posh-like tone as he bowed slightly as Wix smiled at her eccentric friend and said, "I agree with Faba, Lady Luzman. Nothing of this caliber would have been possible without your drive and passion for Pokemon protection." Luzman giggled once again and then walked up to a lab desk and pulled out a crate of multiple designed Pokeballs with a dark blue color and golden arcs surrounding the front. "This is our greatest creation so far, the Beast Ball. This special type of Pokeball is the only one capable of capturing an Ultra Beast besides Silph Co's newest creation, the Master Ball. The Beast Ball releases a special frequency that matches Ultra Space, and any other Pokeball will cease to function if you try to catch an Ultra Beast with it," she says with a proud tone as Birch, Kukui, and Burnett all looked at the beautifully designed Pokeball. "Birch, as proof that the Ether Foundation and Hoenn Pokemon Lab are partnered together for the future, I would like for you to have a case of these Beast Balls, as there are multiple Ultra Wormholes around the world, but the biggest congregate of them are in Alola, Hoenn, and Unova, so I will allow you to bring these Beast Balls with you back to Hoenn, and when the Ultra Beasts appear, you can actually stand your ground," Luzman said with a beaming smile as Birch shook her hand and said, "Your invention and research has already had so many Pokemon professors in awe of your Foundation's ability and cause, so it would be a true honor if I could take these back home with me. Your hospitality truly surprises me," he said with a bellow of laughter as the rest of the adults chuckled. "Lady Luzman! Lady Luzman!" A worker's voice then interrupted the group as multiple panicked workers ran at Luzman as she saw the panic written on their faces. "Yes, what happened? What is the reason you have interrupted my tour?" she said with a sour look on her face as the alarms went off, blaring into their ears as a worker finally responded with, "My lady, there is an Ultra Beast within the Foundation, and the wormhole is right next to the children." Naruto, Gladion and Lily all went to the roof and looked out towards the sea, looking at multiple patrolling boats and Pokemon surrounding the artificial island. "Let me ask you two something." Gladion and Lily both turned to Naruto and saw him looking toward where the sun and ocean met. "Have you ever gotten the feeling that traveling is something you absolutely must do, whether it's finding a purpose, get away from the past, or just simply for fun?" he asked while his violet eyes glimmered in the sunlight as Lily had to look away with a very slight blush and Gladion shut his eyes and then looked in the same direction Naruto was looking at. "I'll be honest with you. Some people don't need to go on journeys, and the people that don't have nothing going for them in life. If you are in your preteen to teenage years and simply have no plans of a journey, you aren't living correctly. Whether you want to be in contests, a trial captain, gym battler, elite four member, or simple jobs like a marketer or pilot, a journey gives you these opportunities to find out what you want to do. I plan to go on a journey in my future." Lily and Naruto both looked to see his arms crossed and Gladion staring at the sun with a slight smirk, "and that's when I'll know what my true purpose is. Destiny isn't real, you create your own journey in life and follow by that ideal until the day you feel fulfilled, and that's when you know when you feel liberated from your doubts, when you look back and find nothing wrong with the path you chose in your life. He finished as Lily stared at him and resonated with her brother's words as Naruto nodded and said, "Wisdom to live by in life. In a couple years when you start your journey, meet me again." Gladion looked towards Naruto and saw the conviction and fire in his eyes, and see where our journeys will lead us, as the only way we can truly know is if we test each other's convictions. Naruto said with a grin as Gladion for the first time showed full emotion on his face as they both grinned at each other as their words continued to resonate with Lily, who was mulling to herself in the background about what she was going to do for her journey. "I will figure out what I want to do with my life, just like they will. Don't forget me." Both Naruto and Gladion both looked to see Lily debating on whether to continue speaking before she said, "Just like you too, I need to find out what I wish to do, so don't count me out just yet," she said with the most passionate voice she had ever come up with as Gladion smirked with satisfaction at seeing his sister so passionate, and Naruto grinned with a thumbs up. The three were then startled by a Pokemon as they turned around to see an alien-like Pokemon floating in mid-air watching them. Naruto immediately went to try to scan it with the Pokédex Birch normally let him use, but the Pokemon that he scanned was unavailable and he had absolutely no info. "Lily, this thing might be an Ultra Beast," Gladion whispered quietly while Lily's eyes widened massively at the thought of an Ultra Beast that was right in front of them that could attack at any moment. Hey." Both turned around in shock as they saw Naruto approach the creature, and it continued to float in place, not moving a single inch. "It's nice to meet you, whichever Pokemon you are," he said as he walked up and put his hand out as the Pokemon floated its way towards him, inching across with every second becoming slower and slower, as they did not know whether it was a hostile Pokemon. Naruto's hand pressed firmly against the top of its head, dodging the spikes as he continued to rub his hands against the scales that the Pokemon had as it said its name in appreciation multiple times. Poipole. "Is that your name? Are you a Poipole?" Naruto asked as it then started floating around him and saying its name continuously. "So it's not hostile?" Gladion asked as he released the breath he didn't realize he was holding as he and Lily both walked up and saw the Pokemon up close as it continued to play with Naruto. It then floated in between Lily and Gladion and sat on Lily's hat and then in Gladion's hoodie as Lily panicked and Gladion grunted before finally settling on Naruto's head as it stayed there and looked at its surroundings from his head. Should we report this to your mom?" Naruto asked as he feared Luzumon might get mad if he didn't tell her and caused a huge fuss. "No need, I heard the alarm downstairs. She'll probably be up in around 30 seconds if she is not pissed." Poipole looked at the person it was on and pointed towards the ocean. "Do you want to go there?" Naruto asked simply as it started making noises of joy and flew around his head. He then looked at Gladion and Lily and said, "Well, let's go check out the ocean." The three of them along with Poipole went down an elevator that took them to the shipyard as they heard rumbling behind them and looked to see many Ether members coming outside spearheaded by Luzumon, Wick and Faba as Burnett, Kukui, Birch and Murphy stood back. Luzumon looked specifically at the Poipole that was floating around Naruto and stared at it until it eventually hid behind him timidly while he turned his head around to see it clinging onto his hood. "Naruto, step away from the Ultra Beast, we do not know if it is hostile or friendly," Luzumon said concerningly while also making sure her children were okay while she sauntered towards the trio. "Oh, you mean Poipole, it's very friendly. Hasn't attacked us once," Naruto said with a boisterous outburst that followed with Poipole copying his movements, and then he chuckled as the adults looked on, some Ether members snickering with amusement at his innocence to the Ultra Beast. Gladion and Lily both nodded, Gladion's a lot more noticeable as he comforted his sister somewhat as he stood beside her holding her shoulder, while she took deep breaths due to all the stares she was receiving. Luzumon stood in front of the three as she continued to study the Poipole, many Ether members getting worried when she continued to stand without moving a single inch or taking any breaths as they each took a step forward, but she raised her arm and motioned for them to take a step back as she said with a humorous tone, "Well, at least we finally have one we can study, and it seems to trust you. How delightful." A couple hours had passed, and Naruto was at the scanning lab with Poipole having fun with it along with Lily while Luzumon and Birch talked in the background. "We have discovered a new Ultra Beast and Pokemon UV adhesive, also known as Poipole. Your son must have all the luck in the world to encounter one on his first day and befriend it. I've studied for years and this is only the 5th I come across," she said while looking down and remembering what happened with the first Ultra Wormhole, having a dark look cross her face while Birch looked around and didn't notice before she suddenly put a fake smile on her face. She needed to stay strong for her children, as they were what was left of her life, so she would devote everything in her power to protect them. "Moan, I'll do everything I can to protect them, just like you did to me that day." Lizman, it seems the main professor himself wants to chat with you, Birch remarked while pointing to a large screen with a video call icon on screen. Well then, let's talk with the big guy himself, she said smugly while walking up and answering the call, and seeing Professor Oak with embers on his hair as he tried to put it out as Lizman chuckled with mirth in her voice while Birch roared with laughter. Sorry about the way I am presenting myself, Mrs. Lizman. My grandson Gary and his friend Ash were hanging around and were playing with a Charmander, and it got quite out of hand, so I am just freshening up, he said with a sheepish laugh as Lizman smiled back and said, It's quite alright, Professor Oak. Samson sends his regards as well. Hey Teach, glad to see you are doing well, Birch said while Oak smiled at his former student. Ah Birch, it's nice to see you again. How's Sophie and Brendan? He asked as he hadn't caught up with his former student in some time. Sophie and Brendan are both with Elm and Jado right now. I'm here with my other son. Oak grew excited as Birch never told him he had a second child as Birch turned and said, Naruto, come say hi to Professor Oak. Birch exclaimed as Lizman added, You too, Lily. Oak watched on the camera as two children that looked around the same age as Ash and Gary had walked up with a Pokemon he had never seen before floating around them at high speeds. He had stars in his eyes as he looked at the new Pokemon before asking Birch, I thought Sophie had one son, not fraternal twins, he said with a confused voice as Birch laughed and said, Man Oak, I didn't realize your smarts dimmed with your old age. Naruto snickered in the background as he looked at Oak as Birch continued while putting his hand on Naruto's hair, rubbing it softly. This is Naruto, my son that I adopted 4 years ago. He's been such an amazing child and he and Brendan are inseparable, same with Sophie. He also helps at my lab with handing out starter Pokemon, healing, and research. I'm lucky to have met and nurtured him. He finished with a soft tone as the look of pride on his face was undeniable as he was always proud to show Naruto and Brendan off to his peers while Naruto blushed and looked at Oak. Hello Professor Oak, it's nice to meet you. My name's Naruto, and I will be the greatest trainer in the world, he said with absolute conviction as Oak was suddenly reminded of Ash and Gary's convictions and smiled. Well Naruto, it is nice to meet you. You remind me of my grandson's friend, always beaming with positivity and passion for Pokemon, he said as he looked at Lily. It is nice to meet you too, Lily. You have a bright future ahead of you if Lizman is guiding you. Lily slightly blushed as Lizman nodded with a soft look as she stared lovingly at her daughter. And it is nice to meet you too, Poipole, he finally added as Poipole began to fly around the large screen in multiple rotations, admiring its new surroundings. So Lizman, what are some tests you performed on it so far? He asked with an inquisitive tone as she responded with, a test to see if it was healthy and what the typing of it was so far. We have done no battling tests, but it seems to be very friendly as it has befriended Naruto and Lily very well and doesn't seem to cause problems besides some mischief. It is a poison-type Pokemon and has the same ability all the Ultra Beasts we've discovered have had, Beast Boost. It also seems that this Ultra Beast may be a unique one, as Poipole has the potential to evolve due to its bone structure and the way it seems incomplete, so it can become even stronger. We were just about to test its battling prowess with either Faba or Wick, if you wish to watch the tests, she concluded as Oak nodded with a grin as a new Pokemon was going to be introduced to the world as Naruto spoke up. Mrs. Lizman, he said as every adult looked toward him as he was holding Poipole in his arms. Yes, Naruto, what do you need? She asked politely as he waited for her to finish talking, so it was a plus in her book. Do you think I can battle Poipole instead? He said with an excited expression as he grinned and looked at her as she sent a curious look in return as Birch facepalmed and Oak looked confused while Lily gasped. Well Naruto, do you think you are strong enough to challenge it? She said with a challenging tone as his eyes grew wide and his grin widened as she could see the fire in his eyes that burned bright. Of course. Naruto stood across from the Poipole on the other side of the battlefield as Gladion and Lily sat with Lizman, Wick, Faba, and Birch as Oak watched from a camera set up as they all watched Poipole float around preparing for battle while Naruto stared at his Ultra Ball. Well Birch, let's see what your son is made of, Oak said with a chuckle as Birch nodded. Gladion especially paid attention, as this was the first time he had ever watched a battler that was not from the Ether Foundation and from normal testing as battles in the courtyard were banned. Well Genji, time to strike, he said as he pitched the Ultra Ball up into the air and a blue light rained down on the battlefield as his Frogadier appeared in prime position for a battle, even if it was just getting accustomed to battling with its newfound speed and mobility. Wow, he has a Frogadier at this age. I thought you would have given him a Hoenn starter and certainly not by now, Wick said as Faba snorted and mumbled about when he was a trainer it was never that safe. It wasn't my choice to give it to him, as he already befriended Frogadier when it was simply a Froakie 4 years ago, so they've been together since he joined my family. It just wasn't my call, he said with a sigh as Oak looked at the Frogadier with a curious look as Naruto, and it had the same look as they both stared down the Poipole. He reminds me of Minato, from his look to his grin, Oak thought to himself as the battle commenced. Genji, this is your first battle in your evolved form, so let's start this test off. Use smokescreen and attack with a water pulse. Frogadier followed Naruto's command as a cloud of smoke exited from its mouth as Poipole had to shut its eyes as Frogadier then created a sphere of water and threw it towards the Poipole, who had no time to react as it was hit by the sphere, but it shook it off after getting hit into the ground. Poipole's spikes then glowed as white spikes of energy rose and shot towards Frogadier, as it then released a purple substance from its spikes as it shot it towards Frogadier as the screen showed some moves Poipole had used. Moves used: Pin Missile, Vino Shock. Alright Genji, use Smackdown to stop the Pin Missile, and then use Protect. Frogadier picked up multiple rocks and threw them at the Pin Missile as they collided and a dust cloud settled as a green energy shield surrounded Frogadier as the Vino Shock held no effect as Protect stopped the attack dead in its tracks. Ramp it up, use Quick Attack to get in close, and then use Aerial Ace to knock it down, Naruto said as Frogadier sped so fast it almost wasn't seen clearly as its hands grew energy blades. Then it jumped into midair and it tried to smack the Poipole to the ground, but it got out of the way using a clone as it was pushed back and the clone was destroyed. Poipole's claws then glowed red as it rushed towards Frogadier, ready to make a move when Naruto shouted, "Use Substitute," just like it did, and then send it into the ground with Thief. Frogadier made a clone as it flipped backwards and let its clone be hit by Poipole as its fell stinger missed its mark, then its hands grew black as it threw a right hook that sent Poipole into the ground. Quick Attack, Nosedive. The simple instruction was followed as Frogadier was surrounded by white speed marks as it nosedived into the Poipole with minimal difficulty. Now double team and prepare a water pulse, then wait until it gets up and send the attack into the ground. Multiple Frogadier surrounded the Poipole as it strained itself to get up as it saw the multiple Frogadier, and created purple energy spikes on its head as it shot it into the ground. Toxic Spikes? Genji, use Bounce to get away and let the water pulse rip. Frogadier it jumped high into the air and spun around to gather momentum along with all of its clones as they all launched the water pulses, but only one connected with the floor as one wave of water rushed out of the explosion and hit Poipole dead on, knocking it off guard as it looked up to see Frogadier shadowed in the air, preparing to end it as Naruto's voice rang out for all to hear. Genji, end it. Use Acrobatics. Frogadier was surrounded by a blue aura as it sidestepped in mid-air and punched the Poipole into the ground, knocking it clean out as Frogadier landed with grace and stood up, looking unaffected by the battle. Birch grinned with pride as Luzman smirked to herself as Faba and Wick both looked impressed. Lily wowed a little at the display of power between Naruto and Frogadier. Gladion sat down with his eyes closed, wondering about the battle and how strong the two of them were. Oak, however, just sat there, thinking about how the battle went and how Naruto's battling was so similar to Delia's husband, how he relied on power but also trickery and finesse and waited for the perfect time to use its moves to maximize the full effect. He saw how Frogadier trusted Naruto explicitly and never doubted him to waste a single move, and now they took out an Ultra Beast by themselves, even if it was an unevolved one they still took one down. "Well done, my boy!" Birch exclaimed while pumping his fist in the air as Naruto smiled at him before walking towards Poipole and fishing something out of his pocket. He picked out a hyper potion and crouched down so the Poipole could see him. "Sorry for knocking you out like that, I can heal you if you want." Poipole, it said weakly as it braced itself for more hurt as Naruto sprayed the potion on its bruises, and it healed up in no time, looking as good as new. Poipole looked at itself and cheered, then flew around Naruto and Frogadier as it played with them, while the adults walked up. Birch ran up and noogied his son saying, "My son is getting stronger every day, can't believe he beat an Ultra Beast. Even if it was its unevolved form, but you've done well, Naruto, we got valuable data from that fight about the Poipole, so you did your job well," Luzman said with a smirk as she looked up and down the list of moves Poipole had used and how its stats had shown up with its reliance on poison moves and status effects, trying to outmaneuver the Frogadier. Naruto got up with Poipole in his arms as he walked up to the group and grinned while also cautiously holding Poipole close to him, making sure he isn't poisoned by its spikes. "It was fun. Genji hasn't had a battle ever since it evolved and Poipole was the best way for him to get comfortable. Thanks for the opportunity," he said as Frogadier was busy stretching. "I have to say, it was quite interesting looking at Frogadier's moveset and seeing how you adapted to the attacks Poipole used and how it used them, as the bounce to dodge the toxic spikes had me very enticed," Oak said while on screen as Naruto smiled at the praise. "What a fabulous battle, I couldn't take my eyes off of the performance. Faba said in a dramatic tone as Wick dangerously grinned at him, and he flinched heavily. Then he gave her 1,000 poke dollars as a sign of their bet. Perhaps everyone looked towards Luzmin as she thought out loud. Perhaps you could help me with another thing, she said with a knowing smirk as the rest looked confused. End of flashback. Poi Poi, it said as it flew around Naruto as it sat on his yellow hair, not willing to step away from its future trainer. After that day at the Ether Foundation, it was decided that Luzmin would study Poi Poi for 2 years on and off while Naruto trained it to become stronger, and when it was time for Naruto to start a journey, it could evolve and then become even stronger. Luzmin kept in touch as she owed the Poi Poi even more gratitude, as it saved her from Annihilago's mind control abilities as her Silvally had defeated the Ultra Beast. She gave the Silvally to Gladion when he left on his journey as he wanted it since it was a type. Null and Lily stayed with her at Ether, waiting for the journey to arrive. Alright Dad, I'm ready to go, he said with a full-blown smile as Birch walked up and rested his hand on his son's shoulder. Naruto, normally this would be the time where I would give you the spiel about going on a journey, but you have worked with me and lived with me for so long that it just seems redundant at this point. Just know that I am always here for encouragement and wisdom, and that you will always be my son. Sophie and I both share that sentiment. When you told us about your previous family, we took you under our roof and raised you to become the man you are now, so take our teachings and show those people who doubted you and hated you what for. With Genji and Olympus by your side right now, and your family continually increasing as you befriend more Pokemon, Birch was now openly shedding tears as tears brimmed on the side of Naruto's eyes as he tried to contain himself. You will become great, Naruto. I have no doubts you will reach the top. Go on your journey and know that you are free from them, and your life now is up for you to decide, not them. If you ever decide to visit them again, make sure you let them know what you are, a man that will live his life without being chained down. Naruto shut his eyes as he tried to control the tears that were welling up inside as he tightened his fists, as he hugged his father, the father that took care of him and loved him with all of his heart, who took in his burden and shielded him. The dam broke as tears glided down Naruto's cheek as underneath his bandages on his right arm, 3 runes glowed bright green, red, and blue as his emotions overflowed him. Birch and Naruto then looked at each other, one with tears of pride and a bright smile as the other held a smile and tears of happiness as they hugged each other, and Naruto walked out, Genji on his left and Olympus on his right as he walked out of the door, and the sun guided his path, tears continuing to flow down his face as he went home and said goodbye to his mother for now, promising to visit every 2 months as he walked out of Little Root Town. His home of 9 years. The place where his family chose him and loved him. The place where he and Brendan started from. The place of his liberation. He walked past all the citizens of the town, who enjoyed his pranks and his joyful nature as they all wished him good luck on his journey. At long last, he walked towards the new route. His first steps onto the new route were marked by a powerful gust of wind, knocking leaves off of trees as he stood his ground with Genji at his side and Olympus in his arms. He carried on forward, not even caring about the winds as in the background, a sign glistened in the sunlight. Welcome to Little Root Town, where trainers begin the start of their new lives. Chapter 2, Resilient. Resilient until the end. Why don't you leave and never return? He shook slightly and walked alone, leaving Oldell Town behind as he walked forward. Why did you bring that fucking thing here, huh? Why? He rubbed his bandaged arm, flinching slightly at the thought of it. You did this, you killed my father, you killed my mother. The voices that floated around him, that told him to kill himself, that told him to crawl under the magma and burn in agony, to jump off the highest mountains and plunge into the deep sea, drowning in his own sorrow, his lungs collapsing and bones decaying until there was nothing left but his bright soul. Naruto, I'm sorry, but you will have to be the scapegoat, we can't protect you. He tightened his fists as he released a dreadful sigh. Genji and Olympus both looked on in worry as the tension increased. Sensei and Kushina and I don't love you, you brought it here, you caused the destruction of our home. Remember it, for it will never leave you. He grit his teeth as the sun's light washed over him as he stared at the clear sky, the sun shining his path as he looked past his old life. Make sure you become champion, Naruto. I won't expect anything less than to see my grandchild become the best in the world. Konoha City, a city I will always hate with a passion, but a city that taught me a valuable lesson. Naruto and his Pokemon walked to Petalburg City, forgetting the early tension as if it didn't exist. It taught me how to liberate myself from people that didn't care for me, people that were two-faced and sly, people that will never have a place in my heart again. His team walked into Petalburg after spending a couple days in Oldale Town and admiring the beautiful scenery Route 103 and 102, running towards the gym as they both beckoned him to follow as he started running after them. It taught me how to feel emotions again. Norman Maple, the gym leader of Petalburg City, waited at the door as he basked in the sun's warmth and looked around at his city, the one he would defend with his life. The city where he and his wife, as well as his 2 children, both lived. He remembered how that green-haired boy, Wally, just left on his journey after learning how to catch his first Pokemon 2 weeks ago from Birch's son, Brendan. His wife, his daughter May, and his son Max all slept as they never woke up during this time, so he had time to admire his surroundings as he always did in the morning. He would travel to Petalburg Forest and sit in the trees, watch the ocean currents go as the sound of the waves crashing against the beach soothed his mind. He looked to the entrance of his city from Route 102 and saw 2 Pokemon enter along with a trainer who he knew quite well. He got up and smiled, then released his Vigoroth as he said with a smile, "Vigoroth, wake up the kid and his Frogadier. Use slash." Vigoroth jumped up and its claws glowed white as it jumped towards the Frogadier, and as it prepared to slash, Norman heard a command and his Vigoroth was sent back with an aerial ace. Norman smirked and went to stand next to his Vigoroth as Naruto stood next to his Frogadier and Poipole, both smirking at each other. "Wow, Naruto, you normally don't react that fast to Vigoroth's attacks, but then again, it's been a year since I challenged you that directly," Norman said with a jibe at Naruto, who just rubbed his hair and said, "Trust me, I won't be caught off guard like before. I have to be the greatest, and I can't continue to lose to you and Vigoroth like that. Plus, last time I checked, me and Genji beat you too," he said with a smirk as Genji had its own smirk at the Vigoroth, who just slashed its claws together to prepare for a rematch. "Well, you have gotten a lot stronger as the years went by. Hopefully when you come back for the 5th badge, you will take a higher gym challenge than the normal 5th, Norman said as Naruto nodded. Norman was the gym leader for the 5th badge in Hoenn, but his full team was on the level of Wallace, the gym leader of Satopolis City. "Trust me, when I get back here, I'll be able to do your full challenge, and I will prove to you that I surpass you, just like you taught me to," Naruto said as he and Norman both shook hands as Norman asked, "Would you like to come inside? I'm sure May and Max will be happy to see their older brother again." Naruto rolled his eyes and nodded as Norman slapped his back and they both laughed. Flashback 9 years ago. Naruto and Brendan both played outside of the house with Froke as Sophie watched them closely, making sure they weren't hurt. Genji used Bubble, hit Brendan's face with it. Froke sent weak bubbles at Brendan as he tried to run away from the bubbles as they eventually hit him and drenched his face in water. "No, dang it. I thought I could outrun them," a little boy with brown hair, silver eyes, and fleece hat on his head said while on the floor before getting back up and trying to catch Naruto. "Come here, Naruto, you gotta face the music," Brendan said as he chased Naruto down, before he was grabbed by Sophie, a woman with brown hair, black eyes, and purple summer dress on as she lifted both Naruto and Brendan up with one hand. "No fighting you two, don't you remember Dad is taking you two somewhere, and you can't be dirty." Both boys nodded and sat back down as Genji sat with them, and they began messing around with the frubbles that were on Genji's neck. Sophie chuckled at the 2 innocent boys before hearing steps and seeing her husband walk back while rubbing his head. "Damn, field work was hard today. Nearly had an aneurysm because of that shit," Birch whispered as Sophie heard him and went up to him, kissing him full on the lips as he returned the kiss in kind before Naruto and Brendan saw their dad had returned. "Dad, let go of Mom, right now!" Brendan exclaimed as Naruto said nothing, as he saw people do this all the time in Konoha's red light district, as well as his former parents and even Hiruzen and his wife, Biwako. "Oh, come on, Brendan, I've had a long day. Besides, Naruto doesn't seem to mind," Birch said as Sophie smiled as Brendan turned to Naruto, who only shrugged and laughed at Brendan's red face. "Owen, not in front of the kids. You don't need to scar them with the Pidgey and the Combi yet, wait until they are older," Sophie said as Birch sighed and unhanded his wife, before she latched onto him for a second and said, "Maybe when you bring them to the place you were going to bring them and come back, I'll let you have your fun." Birch immediately got his motivation right then and there as he hugged his 2 sons saying, "Well kids, how was your day so far?" Both Naruto and Brendan started spouting their own versions of the day as Birch couldn't keep up and was eventually forced to stop them before they made him even more tired. "Well boys, you know how today I'm bringing you somewhere?" Both boys nodded as Genji hopped on Naruto's shoulder. "Well, we are going to Petalburg City, that way you can meet a family friend as well as make some new friends." Both boys cheered at the thought of meeting a gym leader, as they both knew the Hoenn map and figured out that Petalburg City contained a gym. "Will we meet the gym leader, Dad? Is that who we are going to meet?" Brendan asked as Naruto emphatically nodded, to which Birch just smirked and nodded as both boys hugged their father. Thanks Dad, you're the best. Birch didn't show it, but he felt some sort of joy being called Dad by Naruto, as he had just gotten used to the fact they had adopted him from his horrible living environment. It took a couple of months for Naruto to tell him, and he grew infuriated with the citizens of Konoha City, but he couldn't do anything about it as they were still rebuilding the region, but he was happy Naruto got away from that toxicity. Brendan, let's go get the test Pokédex ready, that way we can read some Pokemon stats. Brendan and Naruto along with Froka ran into the house as Birch sat down on the porch and Sophie sat next to him. Naruto was really a blessing to us, wasn't he? Sophie asked as Birch nodded with a smile and grasped his wife's soft hand, entwining his fingers with her as he said, I'm happy he didn't turn out to be truly depressed or broken. Naruto is resilient, and his resilience allowed him to grow strong enough to break out of his prison, so I'm grateful. Naruto is our little maelstrom, and I won't let anyone take him away from us. Birch looked towards his wife and hugged her softly, showing affection as he said, Thank you for bringing Brendan into our world, and staying by my side as we both take care of our children. Sophie held back tears as she hugged Birch back. Oh Owen, you are the love of my life, of course I'm happy to be with you and take care of these two, they are our pride and joy and I know both are going to be great. We brought 2 future champions into this world, now we have to take responsibility. Sophie said with a passionate tone as Birch nodded, looking at Brendan and Naruto as they packed their bags. He saw the sun shine on them as he could picture the two in the future, Brendan at the top of Hoenn and Naruto right beside him, both fighting as they made it to the Hall of Fame. We're ready, Dad! Both exclaimed as Birch said, Alright you two, we'll get going in a little. Wait at the sign and I'll be there with you. The boys nodded, and both ran as Birch got up and kissed Sophie again. I'll be back, and then we can have our fun. He bit her neck as she shook with pleasure, and he walked away. I swear, that man always knows how to hit my sweet spots. Sophie said with a dreamy tone as she watched her 2 children and her husband walk out of their town as she began to prepare for Birch's arrival. The 3 arrived at Petalburg City a couple hours later, after driving a car to the city and parking it in front of the gym and house next to it. Birch walked up and knocked on the house door, and it swung open after a couple seconds to see a brown-haired girl open it, the same age as Naruto and Brendan. Mom, there are 3 people at the door. The girl said in a high-pitched voice as a female voice said, Coming May, make sure they wipe their feet first. Birch, Naruto and Brendan wiped his feet as a woman with light brown hair and pink apron walked up and had a look of recognition on her face. Ah Birch, I heard you were coming, but I didn't know it would be this early. She then looked and saw Naruto and Brendan and smiled at the two, and I see you finally decided to bring the children with you. I know the one with the hat is Brendan, but who is the one with golden hair? The woman asked as Naruto looked a bit miffed. Sorry for coming in such a short notice Caroline, but this boy, Birch ruffled Naruto's hair, is Naruto, my second son. Sophie and I adopted him a couple months ago, and it feels as if he was simply born to us, because he fits us so well. And you already know of Brendan. Naruto said, Nice to meet you, Ms. Caroline. Dad has wanted to bring us here for a long time. Yeah, the old man always wants us to be clean for somewhere else, when he can't even keep himself clean. Naruto and May both giggled as Birch grunted and said, Alright Caroline, I have to go back to Littleroot, Sophie is waiting for me. Please take care of them for the day. Birch had a grin on his face and walked off as Caroline raised an eyebrow at his upbeat attitude until she connected the dots and said to herself, So, you're just going to drop your children on us so you can have some fun. She then turned to May and said, May, would you show them around the city? I hope you don't run away from it, as your dad should be back soon. May cheered as she grabbed Brendan and Naruto and ran out of the house as she continued cooking the meal. So this is the Poke Center, and over there is the Poke Mart, and over there is the lake, and over there we get it. Brendan interrupted May as she nearly cried and Naruto smacked him upside the head. That's not how you're supposed to act, Brendan, we are supposed to be polite. Naruto helped May calm down as they both gave Brendan a stink eye, causing him to shrink in fear. Come to the gym, Dad is there. May brought them over there as the two couldn't talk due to the speed they were going at. Hi Dad, May said as Norman exited the gym with a large smile on his face as he held his daughter up in the air and twirled her around. Hello, my little snowball. Why are you here though? May pointed to Naruto and Brendan, who had their mouths wide open as they high-fived each other. It's the gym leader, it's the gym leader. Norman chuckled at the two and asked, Hey kids, who brought you to our city? It was our dad, Professor Birch. Both kids exclaimed as Norman responded with, Ah, I see, well nice to meet you too. I'm Norman Maple, and I'm the gym leader of Petalburg City. Flashback end. Naruto walked inside the house, looking around and reliving the memories of when he came to this house all the time in the past and reminisced, as he then received a tight hug around his waist and saw Max Maple hugging him. Big bro, you're here. You're finally a trainer. Naruto started rubbing Max's hair with brotherly affection as he chuckled. Hey Max, it's nice to see you're growing up well. You're going to sprout up like a weed soon. Max's eyes gleamed with pride as he saw Frogadier and Poipole and rushed them. Wow! Genji looks even stronger than last time when you beat Dad's Vigoroth. Max then looked at Poipole and his eyes sparkled even more than before. And you have a Poipole. They are one of the rarest Pokemon out there. How did you get it? Olympus snickered and flew around Max as Genji smirked at the praise he received as Naruto put his hand on the back of hand as Norman chuckled at his dismay. Olympus was given to me by a professor in Alola, and it's with me for my journey as I was the first one it connected with back in Alola when it first came to our dimension from Ultra Space. Naruto said as Max fired off questions at speeds that seemed impossible while steps were coming down and yelled, Max, could you please be quiet? I am trying to have my beauty. Naruto looked with a smile at Mei, who seemed quite frazzled by his appearance as she was still in her pajamas and wasn't ready for her day. She looked to be about 5 feet 5 inches with light brown hair and brown eyes as she stared at Naruto, who threw up the peace sign and grinned, sleep. What's up, Mei? Glad I can see you before I head off. Mei's eyes looked up and down Naruto's figure as she smiled widely and shook the dirty thoughts out of her system as Norman smirked and eyed his daughter, who only glared at him as she walked up and hugged Naruto tightly by his head as she held on to him, pushing her face into his chest and refusing to let go. Naruto slightly smiled and hugged her back with one arm, rubbing her back as she nearly jumped onto him before she let go and whispered, It's nice to see you, Naruto. Max was confused at her loud sister's personality change as Norman grinned and laughed out loud at how his daughter was showing a completely different side of her. You started your journey? She asked as he responded with, Yeah, it was about time. I don't want to leave Brendan on his own in the wild. He'll start a war with his Grovyle alone. Norman agreed as he knew Brendan was the type of person to rush ahead, but Brendan ended up helping Wally with catching his first Pokemon on his behalf. Man, now I want to go on a journey. They should change the age back to 10. Max said with a pout as Norman shook his head at his son's innocence to the world as Naruto said, Trust me Max, I know from experience that the world won't be so nice to you, so you have to mature before you leave on a journey. Norman nodded at the wise words said by the 15-year-old, as Mei contemplated what he said. Then why don't you take me with you, that way you can protect me while I help you? Max said with puppy dog eyes as Naruto shook his head and said, As much as I would love to little bro, I just can't. This journey is for me and finding peace with myself and my past, but I will be sure to give you free tickets to the Evergrande City tourney when it comes, as me and Brendan are both aiming for it. I'll also record all of my gym battles and send it to you, sound good? Naruto said as Max cheered and he sighed with relief as he looked at Mei and asked, What about you Mei, you ready for your journey yet? Mei looked down in thought and answered, Not yet, I think I'm going to wait for a few months before starting, since I don't know what I really want to do yet. Naruto nodded in acceptance and said, I suggested Pokemon contests and showcases before, so look up footage of them and see if they catch your interests. Mei nodded as she went upstairs to get ready for the day, giving a final hug to Naruto as she hugged him tightly and refused to let go as he was caught off guard by the hug. She wrapped her legs around his waist and stayed there for a couple of seconds, connecting her lips with his cheek before running up the stairs with a huge blush on her face as Max looked confused and Norman shook his head at what his daughter had pulled while Naruto looked a bit taken aback if his face was saying anything. He snapped back into reality and smiled at the stairs as Max hugged him and he promised to get him tickets, before going outside with Norman and standing at the door. Remember Naruto, if you need any advice I'm here. As your mentor and an uncle, you can come to me for help. He said as they both shook hands as Olympus floated beside him, while Genji sat next to him. Thanks Uncle Norman, I'll be sure to come to you for any issues. And I'll be sure to come back and challenge you, so I can finally prove myself. They both stared at each other as Genji and Olympus stood at his side, loyal and unwavering as Norman's presence showed itself. Good, I wouldn't have it any other way. Get stronger, so we can see if the student will surpass his master. Naruto's passion then showed as his eyes glowed light blue, and his arm glowed lime green underneath the bandages and turned around as Norman yelled out, and make sure to take care of Mei when she's older. Naruto rolled his eyes and walked off with a smile, leaving the maple house behind as he and his Pokemon ran toward the exit of the city. The skies were free. Nighttime rolled around as Naruto sat by the lake of Petalburg, watching Genji float around in the water and keeping Olympus beside him as he scanned it with the Pokédex. Poipole, Poison Pin Pokemon. Ability, Beast Boost. Type, Poison. Entry, this Ultra Beast is well enough liked to be chosen as a first partner in its own world. Moves, Venoshock, Fell Stinger, Facade, Pin Missile, Substitute, Toxic Spikes, Sludge Wave, Endure Uproar. Naruto then pointed the Pokédex at Genji, and its data came on the screen. Frogadier, Bubble Frog Pokemon. Ability, Torrent. Gender, male. Type, water. Entry, its swiftness is unparalleled. It can scale a tower of over 2,000 feet in a minute's time. Moves, Quick Attack, Smackdown, Substitute, Double Team, Bounce, Water Pulse, Aerial Ace, Smokescreen, Return, Acrobatics, Thief, Rest, Protect, Scald, Bubble. Naruto nodded at his team's moves and knew they could be improved upon. He got up and told his team, "Alright, you two, we need to get way stronger. Genji, you will start working on your combination moves that we've been trying to perfect, as well as trying to get U-turn and low kick active. Olympus, I want you to work on Iron Tail, because the next gym is a rock-type gym and I want to use you for the gym. I'll gather a couple rocks so you can start slamming them with your tail, since I know you were training back at Ether. I also want you to teach Genji how to use bug energy in his attacks so he can master U-turn." Both Pokemon cheered and Genji began working on the combination between Thief and Aerial Ace, as well as Substitute and Double Team. Olympus started smashing its tail against many rocks as Naruto took off his shirt and began his workout, not willing to leave his Pokemon to do all the work. He did pull-ups on a tree next to the lake as Genji smacked the tree next to him with a black and silver hand as Aerial Ace and Thief mixed with minimal difficulty, as the tree split in half and fell apart as Olympus dragged rocks with its tail, strengthening it. Frogadier Poi released a pin missile as Frogadier got a feel of the energy and tried to use a U-turn, but failed as it continued to try, not letting up as Naruto started to do his push-ups and planking. "I will get stronger, Grandpa Hiruzen, Uncle Norman. Just you wait," he thought to himself as both of his Pokemon continued to work hard, not willing to give in until they got some mastery of their respective moves. Olympus began to slam its tail against rocks of various sizes, and Genji slammed its leg against the tree he chopped with the Thief Aerial Ace combo, refusing to give in. A couple hours later of non-stop training, it was midnight, and his team was still going at it as he finished his workout. Frogadier Genji kicked the log back a couple feet as Olympus smashed some of the rocks with its tail. Both Pokemon felt pride as Naruto panted and grinned with satisfaction. "Great job, you two. We can rest for tonight. Tomorrow we go into Petalburg Forest, and we make our way to the first gym." Genji laid in the grass as Olympus snickered and pushed Naruto into the lake, getting him wet as Jenny laughed, and they all laid in the grass, looking up at the moon. "You know, you two?" Both Pokemon looked at him as his blue eyes shined in the moonlight, the full moon illuminating their area as the lake sparkled like crystals. "I'm honestly so glad that you two are my Pokemon, you two are family. My grandfather told me before I left Kaiho that both people and Pokemon should be considered family, and that's what I see you two as." Both Pokemon nodded as Naruto closed his eyes and slowed his breathing. "Good night, you two." The Pokemon went inside their respective Pokeballs to go to sleep as Naruto slept underneath the shade of his tree, the moon watching over him and the entire world. Shine upon your freedom. Magma, all that was shown was magma. Naruto stood at the edge of a volcano, and couldn't open his mouth. He saw the volcano and then looked behind him, and saw a tidal wave rushing toward the volcano. He began to scream, but couldn't move a muscle as his voice couldn't leave his mouth, due to it being locked by air. He couldn't move, he couldn't speak, he couldn't do anything. The volcano erupted, magma shooting into the sky as Naruto floated in midair, watching the magma clash against the tidal wave, creating a huge pillar of smoke from the volcano as the magma began to cool and the water was pushed away and rose. He felt strong winds beside him, and watched as a massive tornado sucked up water and magma and split it across the sky, spreading both out equally. Naruto's arm burned with pain as 3 runes were etched into his skin, 1 red, 1 blue, 1 green. He watched in horror as the volcano erupted again. A bigger tidal wave began to form as the tornado in the middle got even more violent as the 3 forces of nature collided against each other, the tornado overpowering both and splitting the magma and water apart. The tornado swallowed him up as he watched the magma and water rush each other again, this time no tornado to stop the assault as the sea rose and land grew, 2 silhouettes of large Pokemon being revealed to him as they both roared and sent attacks at each other, intent to kill laced in the attacks as they collided. Naruto saw the Hoenn region in the distance, and witnessed a tidal wave being sent to his town, flooding everyone away, screams and echoes protruding from the town as they were eventually drowned out by the sea. The 2 Pokemon roared again, his arm burning even more as his skin peeled off of his arm, the red rune burning his arm away as magma came out of the pores and surrounded it. Naruto was shot forward to the silhouette in the volcano, and they both stared at each other, one with absolute fear and the other with undivided anger. The silhouette prepared an attack, and Naruto recognized it as a hyper beam. It shot the attack and Naruto was directly hit by the powerful beam, being disintegrated by the powerful attack as a third Pokemon roared from the sky, a three-way deadlock ensuing as all three transformed into powerful forms, sending their signature attacks at one another. Land, sea, and sky. Water was shot on his head as a bubble popped above him and drenched him to wake up. He sat up immediately and looked up to see his two Pokemon worried about him. He then looked back down and still saw his arms shaking from his dream, and his bandages had been removed during the night as pure skin glistened during the sunrise. Poi 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 poi. Olympus had floated around him as Genji looked concerned, so he put on a smile and sat up, making sure he stopped shaking and stood up, washing his face in the lake and rubbing his eyes. Sorry you too, it was just a bad sleep. I'm fine, promise. He sent a smile as he sat against the tree and held his forehead and sighed in relief. Thankfully, it was just a dream. He thought to himself subtly as Genji had his doubts, but ultimately accepted it and got up. Olympus floated and dumped its head in the river, shaking its head around as it cleaned itself. Alright you two, let's go get some food from the Pokemon Center, and we'll be on our way. Both Pokemon hesitantly nodded as they were worried for their trainer, but knew he wouldn't lie to them, and they made their way to the Pokemon Center, both getting inside of its Pokeball as Naruto went up to Nurse Joy. Hello young man, how may I help you today? Chansey. Hey Nurse Joy, may you please heal my Pokemon? Naruto took the Ultra Ball and Beast Ball out subtly, and put it on the tray that the Chansey held out as Nurse Joy said, they will be ready quite soon. You can wait for a bit, and go sit down. She smiled as Naruto smiled back and went to the food court, ordering some Pokemon food and a cup of ramen for himself and ate for a bit, taking in the succulent juices of the ramen and moaned a bit in ecstasy as no one was in the lobby to tell him off, as they were sleeping or leaving the center. Excuse me, Naruto sir, your Pokemon are ready. Nurse Joy called out as Naruto stood up and threw the ramen cup away, putting more into his backpack as he took the two balls from Nurse Joy and thanked her. Remember, you are always welcome at our Pokemon Center, come again. Naruto grinned and walked out, leading towards the exit of Petalburg as he walked past a house that a green-haired man walked into, talking on the phone with a boy that just arrived in Verdanturf town and spending time with his new Ralts. Alright, Genji, do you want to stay outside your Pokeball when we get into the first, or do you want to rest a bit more from last night? Genji shrugged as it yawned and Naruto took that as a yes, retracting it back into its Pokeball. Poipole floated next to him as he reapplied his bandages and walked toward the beach, letting Olympus play around with the Wingull, Pelipper, Carvania and Tentacle as he looked at the sun rising above the water, islands gleaming in the distance as luscious green grass moved with the wind, waves calmly crashing against the sand as Olympus enjoyed its time outside the beast ball. Olympus, come here. Naruto called out to it as Olympus came and sat on his shoulder, watching the sunrise with him as they both enjoyed it. Olympus, this will be your first time truly exploring Hoenn, and I want you to savor your first journey with me, and it definitely won't be the last, believe it! Naruto said as it cheered out and sent a pin missile into the ocean out of excitement. I can't wait to be the best Olympus, with you and Genji by my side. Naruto looked to the right, towards Petalburg Forest. But first, we need to make it past the trials that await us. First, the gym leaders, then the Evergrande tourney, and finally, the world. Naruto's eyes glowed with excitement as he grinned. We will not give up, because we will never let our future friends and family down. Olympus flew towards the forest, Naruto following it as he sprinted in, not afraid of what's coming as a green and white bird watched him in the distance. Ninkata scurried around the dense trees of the entrance to the forest, Poochyena and Hoenn zigzagoon roaming the grassy lands of Route 104. Buzzing sounds were released from the entrance as Naruto stood there unfazed. It was not the time to be afraid. Hey you! Naruto turned around and saw a blonde-haired boy with a blue suit looking at him. Oh, hello there. Do you need anything? Naruto asked politely, although he was getting the impression of a guy with a stick up his ass as the boy scoffed at him and took out a great ball. Yeah, you commoner, lose to me so I can look good. Naruto raised an eyebrow at the arrogance of the teen as he said, come out, and showed this commoner what for, Zigzagoon. The Zigzagoon that came out had a pompous attitude, as it took one look at Naruto and scoffed, just like the boy. Naruto's sweat dropped at the Pokemon and boy along with Poipole. Okay, Olympus, go for it. Olympus floated forward as the boy said, hey, how much money for that Pokemon? I know you can't resist. He brought out a wad of poke dollars as Naruto had a tick mark on his forehead and gave the boy the stink eye. I'm sorry, but none of my friends are for sale. You should remember that Pokemon are not just things you can buy. That's bullshit. I paid a lot for this Pokemon and spent money on it to strengthen it. Let me show you now, Zigzagoon. Use tackle and destroy this plebeian. Zigzagoon ran straight at Olympus, ready to tear it apart. Olympus, let's use this as a test run. Try seeing if Iron Tail is working. Olympus went, and its tail glowed slightly, and sent the Zigzagoon back into the ground. Damn, so it's still not working properly, Naruto said to himself as the Zigzagoon was immediately knocked out and the boy looked dumbfounded. There's no way a commoner just beat me. My mother and father spent thousands on that Pokemon. Naruto walked away and thought with a confused look, why would you spend thousands of dollars on a Pokemon you can find on most routes in Hoenn? Hey, come back here! Naruto turned around with a glare as he yelled, the fuck do you want, snob? The boy flinched heavily as he lost all of toughness and started to run away crying. On the way, he dropped a Pokeball from his pockets, screaming about how someone was bullying him and that his parents were going to hear about this as Naruto couldn't care less. He did however walk up to the Pokeball and saw if there was a Pokemon in it, which there wasn't. It was a black Pokeball with gold and red stripes and a gold button, a luxury ball. I'll take this as compensation for a waste of my time, Naruto said with a chuckle as Poipole snickered along with him. I realize Olympus looked at him as Naruto said while scratching his head, we didn't even get his name. He challenged us and ran away and didn't even tell us. Poi. It shook its head and laughed at the trainer's dismay as they both walked into the entrance of the forest. Naruto walked into the dark forest, barely being able to see as Olympus was looking around for some Pokemon to battle. Alright Olympus, here is where you can do some Iron Tail training. You won't be able to be poisoned by the many poison types in here, and you can fight some of them off. We will be in here for about 3 days just training and getting your move mastered. Sounds good? Olympus nodded and began to get to work on hitting the multiple trees of the area, sometimes being attacked by Wurmple and Inkata, but defeating them quite easily. Naruto began training on his own by Olympus, as he needed to stay in top shape for his future. Genji, come out and help me. Naruto released Genji, who yawned and barely opened his eyes and saw Naruto surrounded by trees. Genji, I want you to use Smackdown and throw the rocks at me. I want to improve my dodge timing as well as your accuracy with the move. Frogadier, he said with a worried tone as he didn't want to hurt his friend. Naruto saw the conflicted look on Genji's face and assured he was going to be alright. Don't worry Genji, we did this all the time with Bubble. I know I can dodge this. Plus, this is also going to be good training for you, as I want you to be better accustomed with rock moves before we work on Rock Slide later on. Genji nodded as he saw the logic behind it, and began to pick up medium-sized stones and hurl them at Naruto, who tried his damnedest to stay out of harm's way. He ducked, rolled, jumped, and spun his way out of being hit by multiple rocks as the speed increased and the difficulty increased astronomically. Naruto's skin was being scratched by the surface of the stones as he finally knew he wasn't going to dodge one, and put his arms in an X shape and prepared for the brunt of the attack. Frogpoi both Pokemon sent attacks to try to stop the rock from hitting their trainer, a water pulse and pin missile respectively as many leaves cut the large rock into tiny pieces, the pin missile and water pulse connecting with the cutting leaves and creating an explosion that sent many Pokemon running away from the area. What the Naruto looked and saw his 2 Pokemon coming his way and making sure he was okay. Frogadier Poi. I'm fine guys, thanks for looking out for me. Naruto looked around as both Pokemon looked at the direction he was looking at. But something else saved me. It was a Razor Leaf, he said as he recognized the attack from many videos of battles that he would watch and wondered what saved him. Genji closed his eyes and felt movement coming from his west and sent a water pulse in that direction, but it once again blocked by a Razor Leaf as Naruto looked and saw a white bird with orange talons, with what looked like a bow tie and brown collar on. He immediately scanned it with his Pokédex, and it revealed its info. Dartrix, the Blade Quill Pokemon, and the evolved form of Rowlet. Supremely sensitive to the presence of others, it can detect opponents standing behind it, flinging its sharp feathers to take them out. A Dartrix, what is it doing here in Petalburg Woods of Hoenn instead of Alola? Naruto asked as Olympus and Genji stood directly in front of him, seeing if the Pokemon was a friend or foe. Frogadier. Naruto assumed Genji was asking if it was an enemy as the Dartrix took a step closer and pointed at him. Dartrix. Naruto looked confused as Genji nodded and took the luxury ball Naruto had gotten from the rich boy, and Naruto connected the dots and smirked, as the Dartrix saw his smirk and smirked back at him, seeing that the human wasn't stupid as he understood his Pokemon and knew how to take care of them. So, you want me to prove to you I'm capable of being your trainer? Is that right? Dartrix could see the pure excitement on his face as he stood up and prepared for a fight. In that case, I accept the challenge. I can see you possess strength. You're just looking for someone who can hold up to your goals. You want to be the strongest? Dartrix. It said as it flew up and stayed in the sky, ready for a battle as Genji stepped to the side. It wasn't his battle. "My name is Naruto, and I will be the strongest in the world," he yelled out as his right arm glowed red, his eyes flashing with power and resolute drive to succeed as Olympus floated next to him. "Olympus, start this match off, use pin missile and get in close. Then use fell stinger." Olympus fired white lines of energy from its horns as Dartrix flew around them, and its beak glowed white, and it collided with Olympus's fell stinger. "Pluck huh, makes it more interesting. Olympus, coat the field with toxic spikes, then create an uproar." Poison needles were sent into the ground as it now had a purple color, then Olympus screamed as the sound waves sent Dartrix back a few meters. Dartrix saw this and released a dark gray wind that collided with the uproar and created shock waves that spread into the woods. It then glowed orange as all of its stats had increased from the move. Ominous wind, and its stats increased as well. "Alright Olympus, watch it, it's now even more powerful than before. Use Venoshock and then make a substitute, catch it off guard." Olympus sent lines of poison at the Dartrix, who countered by sending a razor leaf as poison was spread around the field as trees began to dissolve and disintegrate. Olympus then hid behind a tree as the Dartrix sent leaves around the area, hitting every single tree and catching a glimpse of Olympus behind the tree. Damn it, it didn't fall for the substitute. Naruto thought to himself as the Dartrix was very aware of its surroundings. It then released a second ominous wind as Olympus couldn't get away from it. "Olympus, use Endure. Make sure you don't get knocked out." A blue aura surrounded Olympus as it was hit dead on by the ominous wind and sent into the ground. Seeing this, Dartrix's beak glowed white as it dive-bombed towards Olympus. Dartrix crashed into Olympus, and it stood tall before feeling the effects of the toxic spikes. It looked at Naruto with a glare, before being confused when he smirked. "Olympus, use Sludge Wave." Dartrix turned around too late as a wave of poison hit it dead on and surrounded it, as Dartrix felt the poison spread around its body, noticing Olympus was once again in midair, and it turned back to see it hit the substitute as it poofed away. "Now use Venoshock, point blank." Olympus rushed right at the Dartrix and sent a line of poison once again, knocking the Dartrix off its talons as it fell to the floor once again. "Finish it Olympus, use Iron Tail and take it down." Olympus's tail turned to steel for the first time as it flipped in midair, and before it could slam into the Dartrix, it glowed white and hit Olympus with its wing. "No way, it used Facade at the last second." Naruto and Genji looked on as both Pokémon were sent into the ground by each other, dust pillars refusing to let them see who won. The dust settled, and both Pokémon stood tall, not willing to back down as Naruto could see Dartrix was about to collapse from the poison, but was standing on its talons on willpower alone. He nodded with respect for the Pokémon, as it reminded him of himself and his unwillingness to give up, and brought back memories of the past, both good and bad. "Why don't you stay down? Why don't you just die already? Never give up Naruto, otherwise you'll prove them right." He saw it in Dartrix's eyes, the willpower to stand and fight, the feeling of wanting to win so badly, the drive of success it so desperately wanted. This Pokémon was going to be his, and he will take it to the top, like the rest of his family. "Olympus, finish this." Iron Tail. Olympus's tail once again turned to steel as Dartrix's wings turned white, and it used Facade one last time, going against the pain it was under and looking at its new trainer with a smile. Yup, this would be its new trainer, a trainer that had the drive to win, a trainer that knew what he was doing. They rushed each other, both Pokémon ready to take the other down, to prove themselves for their new family. They drew closer and closer, time stopped as they looked at each other, and revved up their attacks. Poidar. The attacks connected, and shock waves of wind exploded off of the collision as the two powerful attacks as Naruto and Genji stood there, calm and undaunted as the wind smacked against their eyes and bodies, not willing to miss a second of the end of the battle as the Pokémon refused to let up on their struggle to gain a footing, as screams bellowed out from the two as Olympus's tail overpowered Dartrix's wind. And it was smacked by the Iron Tail straight in its face and was sent through many trees. Naruto followed the path of destruction caused by the final collision as he and Genji saw Olympus and Dartrix, Olympus floating over it as it had won the fight. Naruto kneeled down and hugged Olympus, before it took a seat on his shoulders and gathered its bearings while feeling the pain of the hard-hitting battle, before Naruto gave Dartrix a pecha berry, which it ate and cured its poison. "You fought extremely well and hard, I could see it in your eyes how badly you must have wanted that win." Dartrix couldn't move any other body part besides its head as it slowly nodded and sent a pained smile in his direction as its vision was blurry, and it was scratched all over with bruises marking its body. "Don't worry, I'll make sure to get you the help you need, it's only fair considering you are a part of the family now." He took the luxury ball and placed it against Dartrix's head, who slightly moved its head in the direction and pressed the button, Red energy being retracted at the luxury ball shook in his hands before poofing, and Naruto smiled while Genji looked on with a smile and Olympus slowly floated towards the ball. Alright you two, get in your Pokeballs, I need to go back to Petalburg to make a healing stop. Especially you Olympus. Naruto's eyes significantly softened as he hugged Olympus. I'm really proud of you. You pulled through in the end. Now return. Olympus didn't put up any resistance as it rested inside of its beast ball, and Naruto looked at Genji. Genji, let's run. They both sprinted out of the forest at their highest speeds, going back to the Pokemon Center in Petalburg and making sure their friends were healed. 3 hours later. Nurse Joy was standing at her desk, watching over her Chansey as no one came in for healing today. She was very surprised when a Frigadier sped into the Pokemon Center, holding 2 Pokeballs as a scratched boy, the one from yesterday, ran in after it, panting heavily as she walked up to the teen. Excuse me, are you okay, mister? She asked politely as he stood straight, and she slightly looked up at him, seeing the scratch marks on his face as he said with a sheepish grin, Yeah, I'm fine. May you please heal my 2 Pokemon, we caught a new one, and it needs healing. He puts his Pokemon before himself. Huh, what a nice young man. She said with a smile as Chansey came up and took the 2 Pokeballs from Genji as Nurse Joy added on, Look at yourself, young man. You are scratched all over, let me take care of you at least. Naruto nodded in acceptance as Nurse Joy bandaged his face and left arm as she asked, What happened to you that gave you these scratches, young man? I was training with my Pokemon over in Petalburg Woods, and I might have got scratched by a couple rocks. He said with a nervous look on his face as she glared at him and said, Well, young man, make sure you take care of yourself as well. My Pokemon will always come before me, they are my family. She saw the unwavering respect he had for his Pokemon as she nodded and smiled, before giving his Pokeballs back to him. Please come again, and make sure you take care of yourself, young man. Naruto smiled and walked again towards Route 104's beach, planning to meet his new Dartrix and fully introduce himself. 5 hours later, it was sundown and Naruto reached the beach along with Genji, who battled a couple of trainers along the way that thought they could hold a candle to his skill. They walked slower this time instead of running at fast speeds to savor the walk and also earn more Poke Dollars from beating the trainers. Alright, Olympus, come out again. Olympus floated around, looking cleaned and healed as it cheered and went into the water, playing next to the shore. Now Dartrix, come out and introduce yourself. The luxury ball opened with a lime green energy as Dartrix saluted with its wings and looked at Olympus and Genji, before looking at Naruto and perching itself onto his shoulders. Nice to meet you, Dartrix. I suppose you want to truly meet and talk to us. It squawked and flew around Naruto and set its talons back onto the floor as it looked at Olympus and Genji. First, I need to scan you with the Pokédex, is that okay with you? Dartrix nodded and started having a conversation with Genji and Olympus as the Pokédex's robotic voice rang out to the group. Dartrix, the Blade Quill Pokémon. Entry: supremely sensitive to the presence of others, it can detect opponents standing behind it, flinging its sharp feathers to take them out. Type: Grass/Flying. Ability: Overgrow. Gender: Female. Moves: Leafage, Astonish, Razor Leaf, Pluck, Facade, Ominous Wind, Foresight, Fury Attack, Synthesis, Return. Good move set so far, but we can do way more. Dartrix nodded as Naruto saw the moon was coming up. Do you want a nickname? Both Genji and Olympus accepted theirs. Dartrix nodded and perched itself once again on Naruto's shoulder, looking into his eyes and seeing that he was in a deep state of thought as he had a breakthrough. Decidueye is the evolved form of Dartrix, and Decidueye were known for being experts with hunting and arrows, whether it would be a leaf arrow or their signature move, Spirit Shackle. Artemis, Dartrix, Genji, and Olympus looked towards Naruto, who was staring at the moon as its reflection bounced off of his eyes, the calm waves splashing against the beach and creating a peaceful environment, as the four could hear the ocean and almost heard a song in the distance. Your name will be Artemis. Do you like it? Naruto smiled as Dartrix cheered and Genji nodded in acceptance. Naruto sat down and laid in the sand, looking up at the moon rising in the sky as his Pokemon stayed close to him, feeling his warmth as he closed his eyes and could only hear the ocean and his Pokemon as he felt truly at peace with himself. For the next 3 days, we head into the Petalburg Woods and train. For the next time we leave that place, we will be fighting against our first bump in the road on our way to success. The gym leader of Rustboro City, Roxanne. I know we will win, however. I know in my mind we will go in there and show them that we are the real deal. His Pokemon nodded at his voice, the only thing that was showing true emotion from him as his face looked calm, before he opened his eyes as it glowed in the night, and a blue rune glimmered into existence on his right arm, showing through the bandages. It's times like this where I truly feel at ease with myself, with no nightmares or people to drag my back to my hell. Artemis looked confused as Genji and Olympus both understood what he was talking about and filled it in on what happened to their trainer. Hoenn has really been a blessing to me, and I only just started my journey. I can't wait until I meet new people and find some more family. Naruto put his hand into the air and grasped at the moon, his Pokemon by his side. We will take on the world. Even legendary Pokemon won't be able to stop us. Two people in the shadows had arrived within a port city, one using the alleyways of the city, while the other used the rooftops. They both had arrived at the roof of the department store as night shrouded them from being seen. Lily Cove City is truly a beauty at night. Sometimes it makes me want to book into the hotel. The one with the brown trenchcoat said as he smoked a cigar and looked at the sea and many islands that surrounded the city. You know, Looker, if you continue to smoke, you're going to end up with lung cancer, said the other man, a tall man with white hair as he looked around for shady figures. Oh please, Jiraiya, as if I need advice from you on habits to give up. We both know you're never going to stop peeping on missions. The only reason you're still not fired is because you're the best information gatherer and infiltrator in the international police, besides me of course. Enough about that, have you seen any of them? Looker said with a serious tone as Jiraiya shook his head and said, No, but we know they are back. They were broken out by that fucking rat Danzo, and now they are trying to do this shit again. Archie and Maxie must be put in prison again, or else the same thing that happened to my home region will happen again. Jiraiya finished with a dark look as Looker nodded and said, Why didn't Danzo get executed? I thought he was finally caught with crimes against humanity, and many accounts of murder, and Pokemon experimentation. Because Orochimaru fucking saved him, that little fucking snake. Now they are both after the Weather Trio, along with Archie and Maxie. They will not stop until they are reawakened again. Team Magma and Aqua are back, and now the Hoenn region is under a direct threat. At least the red and blue orbs were shattered. That buys us a little time to capture them before they reconnect soon. Looker said as Jiraiya nodded and remembered what happened that day, how the red and blue orbs were shattered by Minato. We've located all the fragments, besides one, and I think you know what fragment I'm talking about. Looker said with a glare as Jiraiya himself glared at nothing as he tightened his fists at how Minato and Kushina mishandled the situation, along with everyone from that fucking city. Yeah, the fragment that controls the beasts, and stops them from going on non-stop rampages. I just can't believe they actually stooped that low, and created a scapegoat out of their own son, my own fucking godson. Jiraiya nearly yelled out with gritted teeth as he remembered the absolute rage he felt when he found out Minato and Kushina had mistreated him so badly. Jiraiya felt so angry that he went away from Kaiho, his home region and his home city of Konoha, and never looked back. He hasn't seen his former student Minato, his city, or even the love of his life who never returned the love back, Tsunade. He simply kept away. We're lucky Professor Sarutobi had helped him escape, otherwise we'd have to search the entire world to find him. Sarutobi did him a favor, getting him out of that cursed city. Looker said as he puffed out another smoke, Jiraiya sighing in dismay. You should have seen the disappointment on my face when I found out. Not only Minato and Kushina, but Tsunade, Kakashi, even his own brother and sister. They all treated him as a demon incarnate, as the sole reason that it happened. I haven't spoken to them since that day, even when they've tried to tell me that they have realized their mistakes. It doesn't and will never change the fact that they were horrible people to my godson, a person who can stop the destruction of a region. Only Sensei saw who he truly was, a child who had and still has his life ahead of him, and a person who will become one of the strongest in the world. We now know he is in the region due to getting in Sarutobi's good graces, thanks to you and how you never hated him. We take two sides, I hunt down Magma and Aqua. You focus on Root, the snake, and your godson. And Jiraiya, Looker put his hand on Jiraiya's shoulder and gave him a look of understanding. Make sure he becomes strong, because he's already free of his past. Looker disappeared into the shadows of the building, leaving to hunt down Team Magma and Team Aqua and capture Archie and Maxie and make sure Groudon and Kyogre won't be revived again, even if it cost him his life. Jiraiya stood still at the edge of the Lily Cove department store, looking at where the moon and sea met as he forgot all perverse thoughts in his mind and became his old self, the old self that fought in the Cantonian/Jotonian War, the old self that will always be remembered in the history books as the man who fought off 1,000 men by himself and with his team by his side. The man who stood his ground at the Indigo Plateau against the legendary birds, Moltres, Articuno, and Zapdos. The man who saved Kanto and was directly responsible for the peace treaty 30 years ago and paved the way for the joint Elite Four of Kanto and Johto. The teacher of the Yellow Flash of Kaiho, Minato Namikaze. The gallant Jiraiya. He once again was being called upon to stop this upcoming battle as nature's forces prepared to collide against each other, to stop Danzo and Orochimaru from trying to control the legendary Pokémon, Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza. He looked and saw an eye in the moon's place, blue eyes looking at him as he remembered meeting his godson for the first time, and immediately becoming attached to him as he saw the mistreatment, but couldn't do anything as he was needed back at the International Police. He tried to get Minato and Kushina to treat Naruto better, because only Jiraiya knew what those runes on Naruto's arm truly meant until he told them. At birth, Naruto absorbed fragments of the red and blue orbs, becoming the only thing that could calm down the legendary Pokémon. Nobody realized this and simply thought Naruto was born with those runes and called the legendaries to destroy Kaiho. No, it was quite the opposite. Naruto saved the Kaiho region from full annihilation. Now he needed to find his godson again and make sure he has grown correctly and flourished. He will teach him, he will help him. He will protect him. Naruto, I promise, and I swear this on Arceus's name. He looked towards the sky and saw the moon gleaming against the water, crashing waves signifying the swear that he took was one to be kept at all costs, and that would be acknowledged. No one will decide what you are going to be but yourself. First, it was Sensei to guide you. Now, it's my turn to help you on your journey. I promise to help you accept your past, and move on from that disgusting time of your life, or my name isn't the gallant Jiraiya. He released a Pokémon, an amphibian-like Pokémon with sickly blue skin, orange throat and poisonous orange claw. It was his Toxicroak, his Pokémon that he just started training up for international police missions as he was one of the main people called for big missions, and was always partnered with Looker. Come on Toxicroak, we need to go take down an old friend of ours, and find someone very dear to me. Toxicroak nodded, and they both disappeared, jumping into the shadows as though they weren't even there in the first place, leaving behind a trail of wind as the moon shined upon their last location, while on the other side of the region, Naruto slept calmly with his Pokémon around him, unknowingly heading straight into a hornet's nest as underneath the earth, magma covered a Pokémon deep in slumber, ready to be awakened once again. Chapter 3 Adaptable. Adaptable to any situation. Use Razor Leaf, block the smackdown from hitting you. Artemis sent many razor-sharp leaves into the direction of rocks being sent her way as the leaves cut through the rocks and connected with the floor next to Genji, who immediately got out of the way. Now use Ominous Wind, then catch Genji off guard and use Leafage. Artemis sent ghostly winds that were set on a collision course with a water pulse sent by Genji, who was covered by the smoke sent from the explosion and then was nearly hit with multiple leaves before cutting them apart with Aerial Ace. It then used Double Team and set up a substitute, as all the clones rushed in with Thief. Use Razor Leaf around the whole area, then try to use Seed Bomb, see if it works. Leaves once again covered the area as all clones were torn to shreds by the leaves as Genji hid behind its substitute, as Artemis then fired off multiple hard-shelled seeds from the air as the whole area was smothered with explosions. Artemis looked around before feeling a slash against its wing as Genji used Aerial Ace, before he jumped up and hit Thief with its leg, before finally finishing it with an acrobatics. Dardartrix, she said disappointingly as she had lost the battle and had gotten herself dirty before Naruto came up and sprayed it with a super potion and gave her an Orin berry. It's alright Artemis, you did extremely well, and you mastered Seed Bomb, that's a very good thing. Now let's get you clean, Olympus is finished with its bath. Frigadier Froga, he said in agreement as Artemis saluted both of them. But Genji thought to himself for a bit while Naruto brought Artemis to a small lake in the woods that they had used for baths and cleaning. He had nearly mastered the moves Double Team and Substitute, but still couldn't get them to mix with each other, and the thought of not perfecting it made him more angry at the thought. Naruto saw the anger on Genji's face and knew immediately what was going on. He knew Genji was a perfectionist from when they stayed up practicing moves back 9 years ago, and how he wouldn't be able to get clarity until he mastered the combo move. Genji, it's okay. You don't have to take all the blame. Naruto walked up as Olympus floated out of the lake and shook as water slid off of it. I'm your trainer and best friend, so of course I have to take some of the blame for not guiding you properly to mastering the move, but we have time. You'll get it done. Naruto put his hand on Genji's head and rubbed it as Olympus came and rested on his head, getting his hair wet as Naruto chuckled while Genji crossed his arms. Frog Froga, he pointed at the lake and sat down as Naruto sat down with him and washed Artemis's feathers. Darshi said affectionately as Naruto scrubbed her head and washed her feathers delicately. Naruto knew that any type of Dartrix loved to be cleaned and taken care of, so he made sure to always take care of her. Alright you three, today is the day. The three Pokemon all had eager looks on their faces as they matched their trainer's excited vibe, considering this was their day. After we all clean, we head out to Rustboro City. We've been in here for 3 days and trained this whole time, so I undoubtedly know we are going to crush this gym, whatever type of match it is. He looked towards the exit of the woods, surrounded by multiple Pokemon that simply seemed to study his team, and saw the harsh training each went through during the last 3 days along with himself, as he practiced his dodge ability against moves ranging from Venoshock to Razor Leaf, each bringing their own massive amounts of difficulty, as he could have died from being hit by any of the moves. He looked down at the multiple scars he had as his efforts for the training had shown themselves, before grinning and looking towards the exit of the forest. Alright you three, from what I've last seen of Roxanne's Pokemon, she has a Geodude and Nose Pass, so it'll be a 2-on-2 battle. I know this is asking a lot, but who is going to sit out? Frogadier Genji stepped up and nodded. It knew that Artemis and Olympus needed more battle experience compared to him, and he was willing to sacrifice gym battles, at least for the time being. Okay, so Artemis and Olympus, you will go today. I know you two will win, but I want to see how we can do, so go nuts today. Both Pokemon cheered as Genji nodded and looked towards the entrance before seeing multiple bug-type Pokemon staring at the group. Genji crossed his arms and stared down the Wurmple, Silicon, Cascoon and Nincada as they all evacuated the area. Naruto heard footsteps and turned around to see a man in a lab coat with glasses walking around in the grass, trying to search through the trees before he saw Naruto and his team. Excuse me, young man, I have a question of serious importance. He walked up as Naruto titled his head and asked, Yeah, what do you need? Have you encountered a Shroomish here before, or were able to catch one? Naruto shook his head as the man seemed to look downtrodden. Sorry sir, I haven't seen one. I heard they were on the other side of the woods however, considering I was training in here for a while and haven't seen one. Well, thanks for the directions young man, I'll be sure to find one. While the two humans spoke, Genji and Artemis looked around while Olympus floated in between them, watching their trainer closely. Genji felt a presence and turned around suddenly before seeing the dark eyes of a Pokemon stalking them from the trees, bloodlust radiating from that very spot. Genji wanted to warn his trainer before he saw a distinct hand signal, the signal Naruto taught him that meant to wait. Frogadier, it told the other two Pokemon as they waited anxiously. Dartrix. Each Pokemon watched with bated breath as the bloodlust felt stronger and stronger as they knew the Pokemon had the ability Intimidate, but they each shook off the effects. The unknown Pokemon tried to strike as a shadowy figure used the move Takedown, and went straight for Naruto and the man with the lab coat before Naruto grabbed him and flipped backwards, avoiding the move as each of his Pokemon sent attacks to the Pokemon that dared to try to attack their trainer. Naruto held the man back as he turned behind him and saw someone with black gloves try to swing at him with a fist. However, the fist was sloppily thrown and he easily caught the move before going in and elbowing the person in the stomach, hearing a male grunt before moving backwards and letting the little sunlight the woods had revealed him. It was a man with a white and blue shirt with ripped shorts, black belt, black and blue shoes as well as a black bandana with a weirdly shaped A on the front. So Naruto grinned maliciously as he defended the man who sat behind him, almost traumatized as he began hyperventilating. Would you care to explain why the fuck you attacked us? Naruto's bandaged arm began to glow red as he held himself under control, his anger showing a bit as his eyes promised to burn the man that tried to attack him to ashes. Puchina, use bite and tear this kid apart. The man chose to ignore it as he ordered his Puchina to try to kill him, before Naruto let his Pokemon do their thing. Genji, use protect and stop it in its tracks, then use smokescreen and take out its vision. Genji obliged as it used a green shield and blocked the crunch with no effort before releasing smoke from its mouth, blinding the Puchina as it angrily barked. The man once again rushed Naruto and planned to beat him bloody before Naruto kicked him with ease before jumping and hitting him with a haymaker swing, making the man spit out blood from his mouth as he screamed and pulled out a knife. Let's see how you like this, you little shit. The man went to stab Naruto before he caught the arm and elbowed it, making the man drop the knife before Naruto kneed him directly in the face before knocking him out. Genji, knock it out, use low kick. His Pokemon froze at his cold tone before Genji nodded and hit the Puchina with a low kick, knocking it out cold as it was sent into a tree, a dust cloud coming in as the impact from the low kick was astounding. Why did that man? The scientist looked at Naruto with a scared look as he breathed deeply in and out. Naruto turned back to his team and nodded, sorry about that voice, he attacked with malicious intent and I hated to do that, but it was necessary. Get the Pokeball for his Puchina and return it. I don't want it to leave it unchecked. Olympus floated over the man and fished out the Pokeball before Genji clicked the button and the Puchina returned. Artemis, stay next to me and wait to see if he wakes up. I need to make sure that man is alright. Naruto walked over and kneed by the man's side as he pulled him up and dusted him off. You alright sir, doing better? The man breathed in deeply before releasing it and saying while clutching his chest, I'm fine, but I'm just confused. Why did that man decide to attack us? He's going to wake up soon, so I'll see what he wanted with us. You stay back with my Pokemon, and maybe you'll see a Shrimish. That commotion should have brought some attention to a lot of Pokemon in the forest. Naruto tried to help the man as he saw how uncomfortable he was before going back and sitting by the tree, glaring straight at the man. Naruto saw the large bruise the man had and felt a little sorry, but nothing this man said could ever make him a good person. Oh wow. Artemis, stay right next to me. Artemis walked next to her trainer and stood by him as the man with the bandana slowly raised himself off the ground before falling once again, failing to pick himself up. Now the man was barely able to raise his head to look at Naruto, who had a freezing glare with his eyes glazing over, almost flashing an ice blue as his arm glowed blue beneath the bandages. What was your goal? I know you didn't attack us out of impulse, but you waited to catch us off guard. I also know that you were trying to get me out of the way, considering you stared directly at the scientist the whole time until when you tried to stab me. So what was the goal of this attack? Fuck you, I ain't telling you shit. The man cursed out as he tried to push himself up once again, but Naruto stood up and looked down on the man, towering over as the man caught a glimpse of Naruto's eyes, and the fact they turned icy. Considering you are the one that got knocked out, I wouldn't press my luck. You aimed to kill when you asked your Pokemon to rip me to pieces, so you're lucky I don't drag your lifeless body straight to the police. Now, tell me what you were after. The man began to sweat as Naruto took a knee and looked the man straight in the eye. The man tried to pick himself up once again before falling to the ground, unable to use his arms. The man took one last defiant look at Naruto before hitting his head into the ground as hard as he could, not willing to give any information. Damn it. Naruto turned and said, Yo sir, do you have anything valuable on you? This person was focused on you alone and wanted me out of the way. Yeah, I have my company's goods on me. You know the Devon Corporation, I'm one of the scientists. I don't know how that man would have known that, however, considering the knowledge was top secret. I told you just now because you protected me. Naruto nodded and got the man on his shoulders, carrying him as he picked up Puchina's Pokeball. I see. Well, I have to make sure you get back to your company safely in case people decide to try to come after you again. I'll guard you on the way to Rustboro, let's go. Also, can I get your name? Yes, it's Mitchell. Naruto and his Pokemon walked towards the exit along with Mitchell, who began to tell him where to go in Rustboro while Naruto carried the other man on his shoulders. Aware of your surroundings. Naruto walked behind Mitchell silently, his Pokemon resting in their Pokeballs as they walked across a bridge over a lake, a city with cobblestone floors dead ahead as the sun shined on the lake, berry trees to the side as children picked berries and sat in the branches, fishermen to the side as they had old rods out looking for a Magikarp. So Naruto, welcome to Rustboro City. Thank you once again for guarding me, I deeply appreciate it. The police station is by the Pokemart and school, and the Devon Corporation office is next to the gym, you can't miss it. It's no problem, Mitchell. Thank you again for the direction, I'll see you later. Naruto walked off with the man on his back as he saw the Pokemart and the police station with an Officer Jenny right next to the building. Excuse me, miss? The officer looked towards him and noticed the man on his back before tensing up and grabbing a Pokeball. Step away from the man, and put your hands behind your back. Naruto shook his head at the incompetence before sighing and saying, You got it all wrong, miss, this guy attacked me with a Pokemon and knife, aiming to kill. I knocked him out and I'm delivering him to you. Naruto scowled as Jenny looked him dead in the eyes and saw that they were freezing over before she nodded and took the man away from him, as well as the Pokeball Naruto was holding. Thank you for delivering him to us, we'll make sure that he is held until we transfer him. She walked inside as Naruto walked away with a grunt, already in a bad mood. He walked around the city, looking at the beautifully detailed floor as well as the well-designed buildings that completely contrasted Littleroot. Apartments with balconies instead of the one-floor homes, cobblestone floors instead of the soft grass, and buildings with expert design compared to the lab. Alright, I know Roxanne teaches at the Pokemon school, so I need to check there first. Let's hope I don't have to deal with any more bullshit today. Naruto looked at the school and saw kids playing outside with each other, each having a gigantic smile on their face as they all looked like they were having fun. Don't play with my child, monster! Did you really think I was going to let you play with us? You must be more stupid than I thought. They can't hurt you anymore, son. We are here to help. Naruto looked down and shook his head before entering the school and walking in, seeing a woman at the front desk. Excuse me, young man, what are you doing here? The woman asked him as he nodded respectfully and said, I'm here to see Roxanne. I know that once the school day is over, she is taking challenges for the gym, so I wish to see her. The secretary nodded and said, Ms. Roxanne will be with you in a moment. Today was a half day for the children, so she is just grading papers in her office. Go to the office down the hall and knock on the door. I'll call her to let her know a challenger arrived. Naruto nodded and went down the hall, looking around the halls of the school and seeing pictures of a dark brown-haired woman with black dress and pink leggings that looked to be in her early 20s along with multiple groups of children. He knocked on the door and heard a response. You can come in. A soft female voice responded as he walked in and saw her at her desk. Hello, who may you be? She said respectfully as Naruto looked at her directly and smiled. My name is Naruto, and I wish to challenge your gym. I believe you may have challenged my brother a couple of weeks ago. His name was Brendan. Oh, you're Brendan's brother, he went on and on about his brother after our battle. So I've been waiting. You look nothing alike though, no offense. She tilted her head as he just shrugged with his hands behind his head and smiled. I'm adopted, so it makes sense. It doesn't matter though, as we still consider each other blood. Roxanne giggled and said, My, how sweet. Well, I'm up for a battle, but it has to be later. I want my young students to watch the battle in order to see how certain strategies work if that's okay with you, so I have to send calls out to each parent. That is okay, right? It's no problem, considering I was going to record it for someone I consider a younger brother. How does 4 p.m. sound? Naruto asked as she nodded and smiled. That's great. Now you can go explore what Rustboro City offers. I'll call you on the Pokenav if you let me register my number. Naruto gave her his Pokenav as she put her number in the system and he walked out of the office, smiling at the secretary as she smiled back before waving. Naruto walked out as he went towards the Pokemart before looking inside and seeing the contents that he could saw that a timer ball was on sale. He looked on his Pokenav to check his current balance, and saw that he had upwards of 15,000 Pokedollars considering he defeated that rich boy, so he went in and asked the clerk, how much for the timer ball? 1,000 Pokedollars. Naruto handed the money over and nodded while the clerk nodded back and Naruto walked out before going back to the lake and sitting down next to the bridge, looking over the water as he took multiple calm breaths. He released his Pokemon as Genji jumped into the water. Alright you three, once again sorry for before. Darpoi Froga all three responded to him with a nod as he nodded back, smiling at the three. He looked up and saw that the sun was directly in the middle of the sky, signifying it was around noon before checking the Pokenav, and seeing that it was 12:30 p.m. Our battle is at 4 today, so I want to make sure all of you are okay. I'm going to hit the Pokemon Center before walking around Rustboro for a bit, as well as this route, and the other that leads to Rusturf Tunnel. I called you three out because Naruto pointed as his team saw an Oran berry tree and a Pecha berry tree. We can stock up on some berries for the future as well as get you guys lunch. I'll also go make sure that we get food from the center, so gather food. I'll talk to some of the locals and see if there are other berries. It didn't take long before Artemis used razor leaf and cut multiple berries from their position, getting their first lunch ready. Naruto went over to a blonde girl with a large hat with Genji as he asked, Excuse me, would you know a place where you can find berries? The girl looked over at him before scoffing and saying, Can't believe a commoner like you has the gall to try to talk to me. Arceus, not again. Naruto deadpanned as the girl continued her rant. Honestly, you're not even worth my time. Zigzagoon dear, please take this commoner away from me. She released an Ultra Ball and once again, another Zigzagoon came out. Zigzagoon, please use Tackle on his ugly Pokemon. Genji didn't move before Naruto facepalmed and said, Genji, just knock it out with Thief. I'm tired of these fucking rich kids. The Zigzagoon charged at Genji, but was ultimately smacked back with a black hand as Genji used Thief and knocked it out with a single blow. Jesus, there's no end to people with sticks up their asses, huh? Naruto shook his head as the girl began to have a tantrum before he saw 10,000 Pokedollars transferred to his balance. He tried to walk away before he felt the girl grab his hand and hold it there. Wait, how much for your Pokemon? I need something like that. I'm sorry, but Genji is not for sale. Now will you excuse me? Naruto looked back and his violet eyes had met the rich girl's, who had seen them and had a red hue over her cheeks before letting go, and then yelled as Naruto walked away, Wait. Naruto didn't want to stop, but did anyway as he tried to glare at the girl before she grabbed his Pokenav and put her details in before running away, returning her Zigzagoon. His eyes shine like amethysts. The girl thought to herself as she ran away. Froga? Genji looked at the girl running away as Naruto shook his head before blocking the number, not willing to receive calls from her as he thought she was just going to continue to ask for Genji and himself as he saw the blush. Let's just go Genji. He decided not to make his friend any more confused as Pokemon had far different habits when it came to relationships and mating. Poi Poi Olympus came across the river and pointed back, Naruto looking across and seeing the berries they had gathered. Genji swam across and got to his pile before Naruto eventually got to the other side, grabbed an orange berry and bit into it, enjoying the taste. His Pokemon also ate with no regret, enjoying the gentle breeze of the wind as Naruto rubbed Artemis's feathers as she squawked. Alright team, you can rest again until battle time. I'll go heal you guys up and then we'll fight the gym. In the meantime, I'll get more food for you guys. His team nodded, and he returned them all before walking straight to the Pokemon Center on the other side of the city. He saw multiple signs that showed landmarks, such as the Cutter's House and the Devon Corporation. It's too bad all HMs were turned into TMs, the man was a legend. He thought to himself about the Cutter as he walked into the Pokemon Center and saw many people at the cafe section before walking up to Nurse Joy and giving her a gentle smile. Excuse me, Nurse Joy, may you heal my Pokemon? Nurse Joy returned the smile and nodded before getting her Chansey and healing up his team. While his team got healed, he went to the cafe and ordered a sandwich with moo milk, as well as vegetable and pork ramen cups for himself for when he traveled. He ate silently as everyone else was busy. He got his team back and walked out before deciding to go check out the remaining parts of the city. He admired the design of the Devon Corporation and read their slogan out loud. For all your living needs, we make it all. Cool. He looked around and then suddenly frowned as he saw the sign beside it. Partnered with Sylph Co., Lysandra Labs, Macro Cosmos, Poketch, and Kaiho Shipping and Distributors. He sighed and walked away, just waiting for his first battle to come already. He was itching to get a chance to fight and get this stage of his journey over with. He looked towards the skies as the gentle breeze blew into his hair as it flowed softly in the wind, Naruto gently blowing air as his arm glowed green, conveying the peace he had at that very moment. He looked back down at his Pokenav and saw that he still had 90 minutes until his battle, so he just decided to climb to the roof of the gym. When he got to the top, he laid down on the roof and watched the clouds, seeing many flying types go across the blue sky. He shut his eyes and breathed softly, getting some rest on top of the gym right before his battle. Peaceful times. Naruto opened his eyes back up and saw that the sun was in a different position than before and checked his Pokenav to see that it was 3:50. He did a kip up and looked over the roof to see children flock over to the gym, being guided by Roxanne. She is finishing the setup, well that's good. At least she has her students' attention in mind. He jumped down and leaned against the wall, waiting for his call to come. Now multiple other teachers walked to the gym, each chatting and walking inside before he finally received the call. Hello Naruto, I am ready for our battle. You may now come to the gym. Naruto grinned in excitement as he tightened his fist and punched it into his other hand, air being pushed as he walked inside and went down the main hall before coming to a rocky field as the bleachers were filled with students and their teachers. On the other side of the field was Roxanne, waiting there with her arms crossed as he grinned dangerously. I didn't expect you to come this early, I thought you would be here later. I was waiting for this, did you really think I was going to be late for my first gym? His eyes glowed with elation as his arm glowed green, while she smirked back and pulled out a Pokeball. One of the teachers walked up as a camera was set up to record the battle, to which they stood in the middle and raised their arms. I will be the judge of this battle. This will be a 2-on-2 battle between the gym leader, Roxanne. She received many cheers from her students and clapping from the teachers as the judge continued with, and the challenger, Naruto. The children innocently booed while the other teachers looked on with curiosity, as Naruto did not drop his grin before enlarging his beast ball. Interesting, I wonder what type of Pokeball is that? Roxanne wondered as the judge continued. Only the challenger may switch Pokemon. Now trainers, release your Pokemon. Come out, Geodude. Roxanne released a rock-like Pokemon with arms, flexing as it posed and glared at Naruto. Just as I expected. Alright, show your strength, Olympus. Naruto released Olympus from its beast ball as it floated in midair, staring at Geodude with a curious look as everyone looked at his Pokemon with a weird glance as Roxanne asked, what Pokemon is that? Naruto smirked evilly as Roxanne's eyes narrowed at the display before Roxanne's eyes as well as the rest of the teacher's eyes shot wide open as Naruto's eyes froze over and grinned. She recognized that Pokemon anywhere, considering what Professor Oak added to the national dex. It was a Poipole, the Poison Ultra Beast. The children wowed at the unique Pokemon as the judge began to speak. The challenger will have the first move, battle begin. Olympus, toxic spikes across the whole battlefield. Olympus shot poisonous spikes from its head into the ground as the field turned purple, Roxanne's Geodude looking confused as sweat dripped down her face. She knew she had to counter with something of an equal caliber. Stealth Rock Geodude, cover the whole field. Geodude slammed into the ground as multiple sharp rocks covered the purple battlefield, now hazardous to any Pokemon for the opposite team. It's a poison type, so Geodude should have the massive advantage. Still, his confidence is overwhelming. He has a plan, I just need to take it down fast. Roxanne thought to herself seriously as she ordered her Geodude to go on the attack. Geodude, use Rock Throw to knock it to the ground, then use Magnitude. Geodude slammed its hand into the ground and picked up a rock before pitching it towards Olympus. Protect. Roxanne clicked her teeth as Olympus created a green shield and the rock bounced off with no damage. Now use Sludge Wave. Send it in every direction. A wave of sludge surrounded Olympus before it sent the attack around its side, flooding the arena with poison as Roxanne tried to think of a way out. Use Dig, Geodude. Get underneath the ground and stay out of the way. She saw the unnerving smirk on Naruto's face, as if she was walking straight into a trap before Naruto said something that scared her. Use Toxic on the hole, and if it gets out, catch it with an iron tail and send it back straight into its hole. Olympus looked back at the smile on its trainer's face and smiled back, seeing the trust Naruto had in it before shooting poison out of its stingers and into the hole that Geodude dug in. Geodude, get out of the hole. It's a trap. Roxanne yelled at her trusted Pokemon before a dust patch came from below Olympus as the Geodude prepared to sling it across its face before Olympus's tail turned to steel, and it floated towards Geodude with its tail ready to smash it. Both Geodude's punch and Olympus's tail connected as Geodude was shot back into the ground and Olympus was punched back before gathering its bearings. Geodude came out of the other end of the hole with a noticeable purple hue on its face before Roxanne grew worried. Rock Polish, then use Rollout. Geodude shined as its speed increased before rolling quickly and getting faster and faster as Poipole tensed itself. Substitute, then use Venoshock. No, if he uses that it'll double in power if Geodude is hit. And with the iron tail, it'll be too late. Roxanne knew she couldn't stop its rollout, so she waited with worried breaths as one student asked, "Why does Lady Roxanne look so worried?" As you know, Toxic is a move that badly poisons the target. Geodude was hit by the Toxic, so it is only a matter of time before it gets knocked out. To add on to that, Venoshock is a move that doubles in damage if the target is poisoned. Iron Tail is a steel-type move, and when Geodude was hit by it, it took massive damage. Roxanne is trying to get Poipole on the ground to use a ground-type move because Poipole is a poison type, but that trainer is using good stalling strategies like Protect and Substitute to whittle it down that much more. Once Geodude became poisoned, it didn't matter if it resisted poison-type moves, because Toxic is that much of a good move. One teacher explained as the rest looked at how their gym leader was getting embarrassed for the second time by a trainer of a similar caliber. Wow, he's so cool. The students all agreed as Naruto's eyes lined up with Olympus's before they nodded to one another as Geodude hit the substitute with everything it got before being hit by the Venoshock, hard. Roxanne saw Geodude was under massive amounts of pain and the effects of poison were taking its toll. She knew it couldn't fight for much longer, so she threw in the towel for it. Geodude is unable to battle, she said softly as the judge nodded and Roxanne walked up to her Pokemon. She picked up and hugged her Geodude, who looked extremely grateful before she saw two things being thrown at her by Naruto and caught them, revealing a Pecha Berry and Oran Berry. Make sure you heal it up. I may be a trainer, but I also hate when I see some Pokemon get hurt. You're a good person, Naruto said with a smile and nod as Olympus rested on his shoulder and hugged him before he rubbed its head as Roxanne smiled gratefully as fed her Geodude the berries, getting rid of the poison and healing it up somewhat. Geodude is unable to battle, which means that round 1 goes to the challenger. Challenger, would you like to switch Pokemon? Naruto looked at Olympus and whispered, "You did great today. I'm proud, and you should be too. This was your first gym, and you proved my confidence in you correct, so I'm thankful, Olympus. Now, have a good rest." Roxanne heard what he said as she admired the way he respected his Pokemon and treated them like family. You have great skill and a heart of gold. I now see why your Pokemon trusted you so much. Naruto put his hand on the back of his head and scratched it in embarrassment as he smirked and said, "Thank you for the compliment. Now let's continue with this battle." Alright, but just because I am down 1 Pokemon doesn't mean you should underestimate me. I underestimate no one. I take every battle I walk into seriously, and I make sure that my team is prepared for any challenge. Naruto grabbed his luxury ball and enlarged it as Roxanne got a great ball from her pocket and enlarged it. Well then, it's time I bring out my ace. Show them the strength of a gym leader, Nose Pass. Out of the great ball came a blue, bipedal rock Pokemon that had a large triangular nose that was bright red. Naruto pointed his Pokédex at the Pokemon, and its info came out. Nose Pass, the compass Pokemon. Entry: the magnet is Nose Pass's nose provides an unerring compass, making it an excellent partner for trainers going on a journey. Type Rock. Nose Pass fell to the floor and was immediately poisoned by the toxic spikes before Naruto narrowed his eyes at the Pokemon, not trusting it to stay like that for long. It was too much of a wild card, as he knew Nose Pass had electric-type moves. I need to watch out, because it might have Thunder Wave and try to immediately paralyze. I have an idea. He smirked and looked back before preparing to throw the luxury ball in the air. Show your strength, Artemis. He threw the luxury ball as Roxanne waited to see what Pokemon he had next before seeing the Pokemon finally reveal itself before narrowing her eyes substantially as what she had seen. A Dartrix, the mid-evolution of one of the Alolan starters, Rowlet. Alright, so a grass/flying type, so we both have super effective moves. However, I need to take that out of consideration, considering he took down Geodude with a poison type, proving that type disadvantages aren't an issue for himself. He has an unpredictable nature as well as multiple moves to complement his skill, like Substitute and Protect. He also uses status moves and his Pokemon's mobility very well, so I need to limit his ability to make a plan on the fly. He's a skilled trainer, thought the brown-haired woman as she decided to make the first move while Artemis got damaged by the stealth rock. Nose Pass, Power Gem. Artemis, Razor Leaf. Multiple white gems phased into existence around Nose Pass as Artemis sent sharp leaves towards the white gems, both attacks colliding in midair as dust settled. Alright, Nose Pass, use the dust as cover and use Rock Slide to encase yourself, then use Rest. Artemis, blow the dust away. Ominous Wind. Nose Pass. Dr. Large rocks formed in the sky as Nose Pass covered itself with multiple rocks before sleeping and restoring its health, right as the ominous wind descended upon the rocks and cracked some of them. Now, blanket the field. Use Seed Bomb to destroy the rocks, then use Razor Leaf and hit it while it's sleeping. Naruto pointed straight at the field as he smirked. Dr. Artemis used a move that it learned during the days they were training, as it learned Seed Bomb during the harsh training. It launched the seeds directly at the pile of rocks before flying up and sending in a Razor Leaf from all directions as the explosions of the Seed Bomb showed themselves, leaves coming upon the silent Nose Pass before its eyes slightly opened. Alright, Nose Pass, you woke up. Use Discharge and get rid of all the leaves. Nose Pass released blue electricity around itself as it spread all over the area, electrifying the leaves as it also hits Artemis with the reckless attack. Artemis flew back towards Naruto as it hit the ground and dust settled, barely registering where it was before Naruto whispered something inaudible. Great, now hit it with Thunder Wave. Then once it's paralyzed, use Power Gem and don't let up. Naruto widened his eyes at the command before yelling, Artemis, use Leafage to block the Thunder Wave, then dodge the Power Gems. It was too late, as the electrification wave directly covered Artemis as she became paralyzed, yellow electricity stopping her from moving as Nose Pass began to use Power Gem. Now, keep using Power Gem. Nose white gems descended from every angle imaginable as Artemis continued to get assaulted by the attack, Naruto looking on in horror as the students cheered. The teachers, however, all looked worried, as they saw what really happened. Now finish it, Zap Cannon. Nose Pass produced a large ball of pure electrical energy before blasting it towards Artemis, who could only look towards it with a look of defiance. Roxanne smirked as Naruto remained silent before shocking her with a grin as the Zap Cannon landed, seeing a second Dartrix flying into the air with electrical energy around it. I'm lucky to have gotten the substitute off right before the Power Gems landed. Thank Arceus that Artemis didn't get fully paralyzed. She's still damaged from the discharge, but we can take care of that. Artemis looked down at Naruto as he smiled at her. Roxanne looked agitated at getting played like a fool before remembering what Nose Pass's ability was. Nose Pass, Sandstorm? Oh, no you don't, Artemis. Use Leafage and block Nose Pass's nose. Then use Synthesis. Nose Pass was too slow to move as even with the paralysis, Artemis was able to go fast enough to use Leafage and block the nose. Artemis then looked towards the skies as its wings glowed green before its whole body did so, getting rid of the scuff marks from the discharge, but unable to get rid of the paralysis. Nose Pass, use Spark and fry the leaves, then continue to try to use Sandstorm. Artemis, try to use Seed Bomb. We can't let it activate Sandstorm. Why is Lady Roxanne trying so hard to use that move? A student once again asked as Roxanne looked desperate while Naruto narrowed his eyes. Nose Pass has something called a hidden ability. Hidden abilities are an ability that a Pokemon can have that almost always can help them more in battle. For example, Nose Pass's hidden ability is Sand Force, making Steel, Rock, and Ground-type moves stronger while in the middle of a sandstorm. Roxanne is trying to strengthen her Nose Pass, but the trainer is trying his hardest to make sure she doesn't activate it. He figured her out. The teacher nodded in respect for Naruto, immediately seeing the signs of Roxanne getting more and more desperate to win. But his unwillingness to lose made it that much more hard, as his Pokemon all shared his unpredictable nature and iron will. Nosepass was surrounded by electrical energy, as the leaves in its nose were fried while Artemis prepared to fire a seed bomb before being paralyzed. Nosepass saw its opportunity and sand began to gather around as a wind gathered up the sand, a twister forming before scattering around the whole battlefield, Artemis being forced to shut its eyes as Nosepass was unaffected. Roxanne smirked in victory while Naruto clicked his teeth. Damn. He saw Artemis being damaged while Roxanne began his order. Nosepass, use your nose and follow its movements. Use Power Gem. White gems once again gathered around the Nosepass as Naruto shouted, Artemis, spread your wings and prepare to fly. Dodge the shots at 9 o'clock and strike with ominous wind. Artemis began to fly, continuously taking little amounts of damage from the sandstorm as she followed the sound of Naruto's voice, keeping her eyes closed as she prepared the ghostly winds. She felt gems pass her through the storm as she spun and flew, getting clipped on some hits. Head 4 meters north and then nosedive. She obliged and went straight down, sensing an attack in front of her and behind her. Now right angle. She was slightly paralyzed before getting hit by one of the many gems, dodging the rest as she heard a collision behind her while still enduring the pain due to the strengthened attack. Now, let rip the ominous wind at 4 o'clock. Ghostly winds were shot straight down as Roxanne said out loud, counter it, use Power Gem. Then use Lock On. Once he heard that, Naruto knew this battle was soon to be over. The sandstorm eventually disappointed as the Power Gem and ominous wind collided, before seeing Artemis glow orange as its stats were raised. Good, this battle will soon be over. Hang on, Artemis, it's almost done. Artemis looked back at him as he nodded silently while Nosepass prepared itself. Now use Zap Cannon. Once again, another large electricity sphere showed itself as Nosepass fired it, using its nose to guide the move as it went straight towards Artemis. It's time to end this. Roxanne froze at the sight of the same grin she saw when she knew he was finished with a plan. She froze as he said with a trickster-like voice, use Shadow Sneak and make Nosepass hit itself. Artemis sunk into the shadows on the floor as it snuck into Nosepass's shadow, and with the lock-on already in effect, the Zap Cannon turned back around as Nosepass couldn't get away in time. Artemis got out of the blast radius at the last second, still getting hit by the outer edges due to the paralysis, as some of her feathers were singed. Roxanne couldn't believe what she had seen. Naruto smirked as Artemis flew over to him slowly, before Nosepass's knocked-out body revealed itself as it was singed and still sparking with electricity due to Zap Cannon's effect. The judge looked and nodded as the gym went completely silent, most not believing what they had just witnessed. Nosepass is unable to battle, which means Dartrix wins. Both of the gym leader's Pokemon are knocked out, so the victory goes to the challenger, Naruto. Naruto slid his hands down Artemis's head as he showed his appreciation for his team member who proved her strength, as she squawked with delight. Dartrix. Great job, Artemis. I'll be making sure you are extra clean by the time we sleep. He scratched softly as he gave her an orange berry to heal her up a little before walking up to Roxanne. It seems you got the best of me. That was an amazing battle, even if I was thoroughly outmatched. You are a great trainer, most likely on the level of Norman. The only way I could even make it close was with Thunder Wave. The fact you also had an Ultra Beast, something most trainers haven't even seen before, is something to behold. If you would please, may you lend me some pictures? She knew she had to call ahead to some of the early gym leaders and get them to use other Pokemon for higher-level gym battles. Sure, I'll send you them, and thanks for the praise, but it wasn't just me, it was my family along with me. Naruto had Artemis beside him as he smiled and shook Roxanne's hand. They both heard clapping as they turned and saw everyone clapping, the students begrudgingly as they had just seen their idol lose to a random trainer. Well, here is the stone badge, an official sign you defeated my gym. Great job. Roxanne handed him the badge as he put it in his badge case before nodding and walking away with a wave, making sure to give respect to the first person he had to aim for. Next stop, Duford Town or Mauville City. Rusturf Tunnel will take me to Verdanturf Town, which I can then use to go to Mauville, Loveridge, then back down to Slateport before catching a boat to Duford, or head to Duford first, go to Slateport and Mauville, then end in Loveridge. If I can find a ship, I'll head to Duford first. Brendan must have gone through Verdanturf. Naruto thought to himself as he walked out of the gym while Artemis was back in her Pokeball. He walked straight through to the Pokemon Center as he gave the Nurse Joy his 2 Pokemon that needed to be healed before releasing Genji. Frogadier, he stretched his arms as Naruto smirked and nodded, making Genji also smirk as he immediately understood. Yeah, first gym down. Artemis and Olympus pulled it off with little trouble. Although Roxanne had plenty of skill with her, as her Nosepass was able to hold its own against Artemis somewhat. Naruto took the luxury ball and beast ball from Nurse Joy. As he and Genji walked out of the Pokemon Center, looking towards the Devon Corporation before seeing smoke in the air and looking behind him, a major fire from the police station as Officer Jenny and her Growlithe were knocked out in front with Officer Jenny having black eyes and multiple bruises. Genji, use Water Pulse and create a huge wave to put out the fire. Naruto sprinted towards Officer Jenny and picked her up along with returning her Growlithe to its Pokeball before sprinting back and letting Genji use the Water Pulse. Genji thrusted the water sphere forward as the wave it created smashed into the police station and put out the fire before he looked back to see that the person he knocked out before was escaping with burn marks all over, coughing up as he was running towards Rusturf Tunnel. Wait, I thought all he had was a Poochyena? Either way, I need to capture him again, Naruto said as he laid Officer Jenny next to a building before chasing after the man, Genji going in front of him as they both sprinted to the next route. He saw the man in the distance chasing a man and woman with red and black cloaks with his Poochyena who was healed up as he heard the man shout curse words towards the two that were trying to get away without a trace. Genji, speed up using quick attack and use double team to entrap all of them. We need to figure out what is going on. Genji sped up with a white slipstream behind him as he sped past the three people and used double team, blocking the path into Rusturf Tunnel as the two in front called out Pokemon, another Poochyena and a Numel. Numel, use Flame Burst and knock it out before using Magnitude, the man said assertively as Numel prepared a red flame that burst out of its mouth. Genji saw this and he as well as his clones created water pulses before completely smothering the Numel's flame burst as well as exploding and causing a huge wave, stopping everyone in their tracks. Damn, the mission has been compromised, the woman said to her partner as she hid something within a black duffel bag before the man with the bandana ran up and slugged the man in the red cloak as hard as he could in the face, making spit fly out as the Numel prepared to kill the man with a flame burst. Before that, the Poochyena that the man with the bandana tackled Numel before being tackled by the second Poochyena before Naruto arrived. Give me back the Devon goods. You magma idiots won't be getting ahead this time. Genji, knock everything out. Use Outlaw Strike. Genji noticed Naruto's eyes were red with anger before shaking it off as imagination and used his combo move of Aerial Ace and Thief on the first of the two Poochyena, easily coing it a second time before dodging a flame burst as the woman proceeded to kick the man with the bandana in the stomach, sending him back before looking at Naruto with a murderous glare as she ordered her Poochyena. Poochyena, use Bite and rip his neck out. Naruto scoffed at the order to kill him once again before moving around the Poochyena's attack as he then felt another presence exit the Rusturf Tunnel. He didn't even need to look as he suddenly heard a voice shout out, Grovyle, use Leaf Blade and dust that Poochyena. He saw a green bipedal Pokemon with reptilian features and multiple leaves coming out of its boy slash the Poochyena with its leaves coming from its arms, pushing it back as it slid in the dirt for multiple seconds before coming to a stop in front of the woman as she glared to her side while the man in the cloak knocked out the second man in the bandana. Yo Naruto, you're running into these clowns too? A familiar voice called out to him as his eyes stopped glowing red and returned to their normal color as he heard that voice. Yeah, it's a shame they decided to mess with the wrong people. You sure you're not here because you wanted to brag, Brendan? Naruto turned with a grin as he looked at his brother. Someone who he really cared for. Brendan was a light-skinned teen that was 5 feet 9 inches with a white and green hat, red and black short-sleeved shirt, black jeans, red and black sneakers as well as green bag, standing confidently with a smirk as he came out of the Rusturf Tunnel as his Grovyle sped back to his side, looking at Genji with a challenging look as Genji nodded back. I would like to say that I was, but I needed to deliver something here from Mauville to the Devon Corporation and I kept encountering some of these people on the way here, as there were 3 of them in Verdanturf. You took your sweet time starting your journey though. If you went as fast as me you could have been at Uncle Norman's gym right now, Brendan said with a mixture of sarcasm and praise for his brother's skills as they both were very powerful trainers for how they began their journey, but Naruto wanted to experience the journey while he just wished to go straight through. You know, sometimes you have to experience. Naruto dodged a tackle from the Poochyena as the male with the cloak tried to punch him, but he caught the punch and hit the man in the stomach before spinning and kicking him back with ease. Everything your journey offers, you can't just rush through. Yeah, I'm aware. It's why I'm coasting. Now I have to save you like I did before in Meteor Falls, he said with a cheeky grin as the Numel tried to use Ember but he and Grovyle moved around the attack. He ran up to Naruto while both Genji and Grovyle stood next to each other, nodding at one another before glaring at the two partners as both Naruto and Brendan's arm glowed green, both grinning while the man and woman glared furiously. Numel, use Magnitude and bury them. Poochyena, jump into the trees and use Takedown on the Grovyle. The ground began to shake as it cracked up, signifying a Magnitude 6 as the cracks barreled their ways towards Naruto and Brendan, both unfazed. Grovyle, jump and use Fury Cutter on the Poochyena. Genji, jump and use Scald. Paint the area. Both Pokemon jumped high, using their strong legs to get high and dodge the magnitude as Naruto and Brendan jumped backwards to avoid it before Grovile's sharp leaves turned a very light green and Genji began to gather boiling water in his mouth. Genji shot the boiling water across the whole area, hitting the Numel as well as filling the cracks that formed due to the magnitude. Grovile and the Poochyena charged at one another before Grovile outmaneuvered the takedown and hit Poochyena hard with the Fury Cutter, sending it straight into the ground. Both Pokemon landed on the ground, hot steam rising from around the battlefield. Numel was knocked with boiling water rolling down its sides, while Poochyena was knocked into a crater with the Fury Cutter. The man with the bandana was laid out on the floor while his Poochyena was sent into a tree. The two people in cloaks tightened their fists as they tried one last-ditch attempt to escape, but didn't get far as Naruto chopped the female on the back of the neck before Brendan hit the man's pressure point in the back of the neck, both falling to the ground. As they fell to the ground, the female dropped the black duffel bag as Naruto walked up and grabbed it before looking at Brendan, who had a smug grin. Damn, we really are awesome. We cleaned it up in a matter of seconds. Naruto chuckled at his nonchalant attitude to the situation before high-fiving his brother with his bandaged hand, both arms glowing green underneath the bandages and sleeve respectively as they both grinned at one another. Alright, first we have to go back to Rustboro and check on Officer Jenny as well as the police station because I think the two people in the cloaks burned it down intending to kill this guy. Naruto cut straight to the point as Brendan nodded grimly as he responded with, "Yeah, I heard the woman order her Poochyena to kill you. These people are horrible, brainwashing Pokemon and trying to kill people who get in their way. I feel bad for the Pokemon in this situation." Brendan spat as he glared at the trainers before Naruto grabbed his shoulder and sighed while Grovile and Genji stood by each other, watching over their trainers silently. Yeah, that man in the bandana called them magma idiots and asked to give him back the Devon goods. That same man attacked me and a scientist from the Devon Corporation before my gym battle, so he probably wanted these Devon goods, but I got in the way. These two probably invaded the Devon Corporation building and stole it before burning down the police station to get rid of him. He got out and chased the two, while I chased all of them with Genji. Well, what are we going to do now? We can't just leave them here? Brendan asked as Naruto pointed to the Pokeballs that were on the ground. Let's return their Pokemon back to their Pokeballs at least, since they could be rehabilitated at a nature preserve or safari zone. I don't want to see them suffer at the hands of these sick people any longer. Naruto said as Brendan nodded before releasing a Pokemon from a great ball, revealing a dog-like Pokemon with a green and yellow color scheme as it roared. Electrike, it roared and looked at Brendan before nodding as Brendan said, Electrike, use Thunder Wave on the three people so if they wake up, they won't be able to move. Electrike nodded and roared before releasing yellow waves of electricity and hitting the three intended targets before looking at Naruto before growling, Genji narrowing his eyes as Grovile chastised it. Sorry about Electrike, he's very loyal. We caught him at Mauville and he always watches over me, really helping me over at Watson. Naruto nodded and smiled at the protective Pokemon as he kneeled down to pet it before getting up and nodding to Brendan before they both returned each Pokemon that the people had back into their Pokeballs before Naruto grabbed one man as Brendan grabbed the other, while Genji and Grovile grabbed the woman. They all started running, Electrike running beside them as they sprinted back into the city. A silhouette in the tree line witnessed the battle and how the two trainers dominated the fight before furrowing their eyes. They heard the whole conversation and saw that the Devon goods were taken as well as the fact that the grunts would be questioned by the police, and sighed before thinking to themselves about what they heard the second trainer say. Now I have to save you like I did before in Meteor Falls. They also thought about the green glow coming from underneath his right sleeve, as they caught a glimpse of the light before it faded away. They pulled up a phone and contacted someone before disappearing into the trees, their last words echoing throughout the area. Courtney, we have an issue. A wild flame was seen burning down trees as something ran fast past a large boat and into the bushes as it hit itself. Out of the large boat came out men with blank white masks and headbands on their foreheads, headbands with the symbol of a leaf. The special things about these headbands were the fact that they were slashed through the middle, single slash marks cutting the symbol of the leaf. 5 men came out silently, being followed by bipedal Pokemon with sharp claws and a resemblance to a cat and a weasel as well as bipedal Pokemon that looked like steel blades had combined with its armor, sharpening their blades as the men came out before one said in a monotone voice, "Did you find subject 763? No, it disappeared into the fire. We have no water Pokemon to use, so it was impossible to follow." Lord Danzo will be extremely displeased. He needed 763 to be shipped out safely as it was the most rebellious to the experiments, and even with the restraints it burned its way out and charred the forests. Search the island. If we don't find it, we must accept our punishments with honor, for that is what Lord Danzo has taught us. The 5 men as well as their Pokemon split off in different directions as the Pokemon that went into the bush ran and swam in the sea for 5 minutes, barely surviving due to a current that pushed it to wash up on a beach. The Pokemon saw a cave and went down, water flowing down its sides as it felt incredibly weak before going farther and farther down the cave, using its great vision to help as the cave was pitch black before coming to a stop on the bottom floor, making a ring of unending fire around itself before drying off and looking around, seeing the multiple Aaron and Makuhita cowering in fear before growling and burning up more. It looked down and saw its fur had changed color and released a purple flame in its rage. It saw how its flame had turned purple and smashed itself against the wall of the cave before looking darkly at itself as the purple fire burned around it. I swear to Arceus himself, I will find Danzo the Abhorred, and I will kill him with my own jaw. I will burn him to the ground and kill him dead, making Yveltal cry in joy at how this human will be mutilated beyond belief. The Pokemon went to sleep, not knowing it spoke in a human voice to the whole cave as they watched the purple fire burn, keeping their distance from the unknown Pokemon. What if Naruto has Greninja and Naganadel Pokemon? End here and thanks for watching my video till the end.